President Skame and members of the committee. This is the start of the review of the operating budget for FY26. There will be 2 Finance Committee meetings dedicated to receiving presentations from each of the operating departments on their respective budgets starting tonight. So we have 6 departments tonight. We have the village clerk, the fire department, neighborhood services, public health, development services, and public works. And then the next night, we have a different set, the remaining departments on November 6th. That'll be police, HR, IT, law, village manager's office, and the respective offices that report to the village manager's office. DEI, sustainability, economic vitality, communications and adjudication, and then also the finance department. Also want to, there is a meeting on November 4th to finalize the review of the capital improvement budget with the finance committee. And so tonight, 11/4 on the CIP, 11/6, the final presentations from the remaining operating departments. And then after that, the plan is to refer the budget to the full board for 2 discussions starting the first one starting on November 11th, and then hopefully the final discussion and a public hearing on 11/18 on the full budget. And our goal is to actually have the full board adopt a budget on December 2nd. So that is the current plan in terms of the schedule. So we're excited for the presentations tonight to kick them off. And I'm going to turn it over to interim CFO Donna Gayton. She's with us via Zoom tonight, and she'll introduce the rest of this item, and we'll start to bring the departments up. Donna?
Oh, good evening, everyone. We're going to start off tonight. Mary Moldowski, the budget manager, is going to introduce each department and bring up their PowerPoints. And at the time after their presentation or any time during their presentation, you are welcome to ask any questions. I don't know, I see one screen, so I'm here, but I don't know if you can see me. So Mary?
Good evening, Mary Modelsky, Budget Manager. Our first presentation tonight will be from our village clerk, Clerk Waters.
Good evening. Christina Waters, Oak Park Village Clerk. First of all, thank you all. This is definitely a different side of the table, so bear with me. The purpose tonight is for me to present the FY26 priorities, accomplishments, and key budget highlights for the Office of the Village Clerk. The mission statement: the Clerk's Office is Oak Park's independent elected records steward. Our mission is transparency, accessibility, and professionalism in records and public process. We make civic participation possible. Every board record, election, and public request relies on this foundation. Our values are fairness, accuracy, and gracious service that builds trust between government and the community. The Clerk's Office bridges government and community. We preserve official records, enable open meetings, and ensure compliance with transparency laws. Beyond compliance, we're leading civic engagement, youth programs, voter outreach, and the new Civic Engagement Fest, pictured here in this slide. The Clerk's Office operates independently but collaborates across departments. We're centralizing records management in FY26 to strengthen both record keeping and community engagement. To speak to community affordability, we want to continue offering free notary services on and off-site. We will travel to someone's home or come in on the weekends and meet them in the police department to offer those notary services. We also want to expand voter registration accessibility through more community partnerships. Regarding community health and safety, we want to continue to support wellness initiatives for residents and staff, and collaborate with public safety teams to expand CPR and first aid instruction opportunities. And I'm sure you're wondering, why would the village clerk even want to do such a thing? The backstory there is that I spent 7 years as an American Heart Association first aid and CPR instructor with the Park District of Oak Park. And so part of the initiative is to ensure that internally and externally, so staff as well as community, at least know hands-on CPR. In terms of racial equity, we want to deepen collaboration with the Office of DEI and continue hosting and supporting inclusive community events like the Black Maternal Health Coalition series and One Earth Film Festival panel. In terms of vibrant, connected neighborhoods, we want to continue to host civic education events and youth engagement programs and encourage broader representation on boards and commissions. For sustainability, we want to digitize historical archives, which would include ordinances, minutes, and resolutions to improve transparency and FOIA efficiency. We also want to partner with the Oak Park Public Library to safely preserve 100-year-old records and reassess digitization with best practices in mind. The digitization project was a part of the budget last year. Throughout this year, and we began the RFP process, but throughout this year, we had actually gone on a visit, a tour of the Oak Park Public Library. During that tour, we realized that there is a beautiful archive room that's temperature controlled, and it is a perfect place for these 100-year-old books to live. This approach protects the village's history and modernizes record access. So for FY25, you see that the amended budget was $356,000 roughly, and the FY26 requested budget is $421,000. The increase reflects one-time investments in service expansion, which do include that digitization project. It also includes Clerk Connect platform, as well as the Iron Mountain services, which are being transferred from the finance department over to the village clerk's office. These investments streamline operations and strengthen transparency. And in closing, the clerk's office continues to grow as both a records authority and a civic engagement leader. FY26 focuses on modernization, collaboration, and access. I just want to thank the board for its continued partnership and investment in transparent open government, and I invite any questions.
Questions?
Thank you. This is great. I'm just curious about a couple questions around the archiving work. So I've seen that room at the main branch of the public library. It's amazing. There's a bunch of awesome archives that are already in there. So can you say more about that? Is that instead of using one of the other vendors that we were talking about doing, are they going to offer that? Is there room for all those records? I'm just curious what that looks like.
Absolutely. So right now, in perspective, during my first term, those books have moved and been rehoused at least 4 times. So just consider if they continue to move or continue to sit in the sun, we won't have them within the next decade. So collaborating with the library means, yes, they can house those books, but also finding out who digitizes their records and collaborating with them on that. So we've started those conversations with the library, and we're hoping to collaborate and figure out who they're using and then use them as well, and potentially reissue the RFP.
Okay, great. And can you say more about the Iron Mountain project? And that's listed as a one-time thing? Is that, I thought they were a service, or tell me more about that.
They are a service, so this is the first year that it will live in the clerk's office. It probably lived there many moons ago. However, since at least I've been clerk, and maybe when President Skaman was clerk, it's been in the finance department. And so this is just to reflect that one-time move over to the clerk's office.
Okay, got it. Okay.
That's correct. It was given to, under Teresa Powell's term between 2012 and 2017.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have a question, real quick. So the one-time expenses in 2026, are they in this table? Because the one is 60,000, and I don't see any of these changing anything approaching 60,000, except in total.
This slide here.
Right.
So this does reflect some of those changes. It'll be, the variances are there on the side. And so that will at least account for at least 65,000 roughly dollars of those changes.
Okay, because it's about 80,000. That looks like they're changing.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This is Donna. It is, Trustee Taglia, it is included in the FY25 amended budget in contractual services
I see.
of the 90,000, but we didn't spend it. So, but it still was housed there. And so it moved over to the 26 requested.
Okay.
That's why you don't see the variance. And then the Iron Mountain has always been in finance, so it just moved from finance to the clerk's office.
Got it. Very good. Thank you. That explains it. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next presenter will be Chief Terry for our fire department.
Good evening. J.T. Terry, Fire Chief. Thank you, President Skaman, trustees and commissioners for the time this evening. We'll just kind of get right into our mission statement is a way that we can focus and sum up not only what we do, but the importance of protecting the environment and showing dignity and respect to all people, not only residents, but also visitors that we represent. And this kind of gives us a central location that we can refer back to over the year. In addition to our core services, which the fire department is very well known for, fire suppression, EMS and rescue, these are some other items that sometimes get lost in the shuffle that we need to draw attention to that your professional firefighters and paramedics do. As we move forward, we are going to continue this idea of an increased community risk reduction services through American Heart Association. First aid, CPR classes are coming back. The grant program has expanded. Now we offer weekend days to give those that work an opportunity to come in, get trained, remain certified. Also, we're very proud that the return of the certified car seat program. One of the losses during COVID, unfortunately, but it is back, and we are excited to have that again to offer to young parents, grandparents, and babysitters are also very popular with that program. Some of the wellness initiatives that we have completed this year and will continue have come up recently as we used a federal grant to replace the Plymovent system in all of our stations. If you're not familiar with the Plymovent system, if you come to the stations or the yellow hoses that hang down, they actually connect to all the vehicles and exhaust the diesel and the gasoline fumes out of the building. It increases the health and the wellness of the firefighters by reducing pollution through the building. We're also working, as you know, to get an SCBA washer to clean up some of the decontaminants, not only of the byproducts that the SCBA packs on them, but also dispose safely of that wastewater. Currently, we have to wash them by hand, so it does. Once again, there are some contaminants that are a little harder to control, so that is an initiative that we're taking. In terms of how we can leverage technology, not only to provide a better service for the patients that we transport on the EMS side, but also for more efficient record keeping and billing process through the village. We've moved to Toughbooks, and with our contractor Zoll, able to get download actual real-time information that we can transmit to the hospitals so the physicians can see what is coming in as we are coming to the actual facility. And continuing to build and work with the ECHO program is very important, not only as a partner here in the village, but also to get the individuals and patients what they need. Because as we've talked about in the past, the hospital isn't always the best place for them. So this gives them a handoff and a structure to get them the care and the help that not only the individuals need, but also their family. Family support is very important when we're looking at helping people recover. This is where we are looking at 73 FTEs. Most of this, as you can see, is heavily on shift, and then there's the administrative and the support. Police and Fire Commission, and then the Foreign Fire Board are our partner agencies with the Oak Park Fire Department. Moving forward, these initiatives tie into where we've been the past couple years and looking forward to how we can advance them. So the remodel at Station 3, a little background, that station was built when the Eisenhower was put through back in 1961. The actual original station is still on Garfield there. It's an auto body shop now, but the current station was moved to where it is. And some updates have definitely been done, but it's time to do the administrative side and the kitchen, so we're excited for that. Again, looking at wellness initiatives in terms of making the building more efficient, and then also how we can use light and understand how nocturnal calls and calls at night have the effect on the firefighters and the paramedics. Also, Station 2, the space study is rapidly approaching, and we'll be looking into ways that we can not only expand their services, but do it in an efficient and effective manner. As we talked about last week, the Baker Tilly study, lots of good information in there. We're already working with the collective bargaining group, and then also with the HR department in terms of a way to implement some of those recommendations as quickly as possible. But those are long-term recommendations, so we do recognize that and keep that in mind. Moving on with that is how we are going to move forward and evolve our eligibility list and our hiring program. Again, some items that were brought up in the Baker Tilly, and also some items that we have known in the past. So, where we're looking for the amended budget this year, and then the increase that we're requesting for next year, there is an addition requested for the training officer position to help tie consistency through the department, and also to help with our recruiting and retention, which is a huge initiative that we are undertaking currently. And then, as we've talked about before, the pre-ordering of the fire truck, which long-term benefits the village and saves a significant amount of money, obviously will have an impact on this year's budget. So. And then moving forward, we will continue to work on our community risk reduction and outreach. Again, the American Heart Association Training Center, the car seat program is very important. We're looking at ways that we can expand that, not only to people coming to the firehouse, but to outreach them at their organization. Another huge priority, and we're very grateful for the support that we're getting, is filling the vacancies. That will not only address the overtime of our budget, but will also help reduce some of the strain of the current members of the department. Again, just being mindful that one of the priorities of this board is the wellness of the employees, and how we approach modifications of the stations and how we approach planning of future stations is very important to us, and we will keep that in mind as we move forward through the year. And then looking at recruitment overall, organizations that we have not reached out to in the past, maintaining constant relationships with them instead of hopping every time that we have a list. This is something that we can reach out and we can do better, and we will do better at reaching underrepresented minorities and individuals that are welcome in the fire service and are certainly welcome at the Village of Oak Park. So at this point, very high overview. More than happy to take any questions or clarify anything.
Okay. Brian?
Am I correct that this maintains staffing levels other than the one training lieutenant? Is there, based on the discussion of the whole board, is there a plan to bring this back with additional staff? Because it seemed like the the consensus of the board was that we were looking at 6 to 9 new firefighters based on the recommendations of the 2 staffing studies.
So Trustee Straw, members of the committee, the process starts on the budget with the manager's proposed budget. So what is before you tonight is the village manager's proposed budget. The process is ongoing. If the board decides to direct the manager to add those positions to the budget, we'll add those positions to the budget. And I would recommend to the Finance Committee and the Village Board that if you do decide to add those positions to the budget, that you might consider identifying a financial, a revenue source to support them.
Yeah, certainly. I understand that that addition would necessitate looking elsewhere in the budget for something that offsets or a revenue source. And I appreciate that. I do think my sense from the board meeting 9 days ago, was the consensus of the board was that based on what we had heard, it sounded like there was a need for additional staffing, as well as the overhire authority that was discussed in the Baker-Tilly recommendations. So I would be supportive of at least adding the 6 positions that were identified in the Baker-Tilly recommendation, plus overhire authority up to 3 additional positions as sort of a middle ground on those 2 proposals. Understanding that we still have a lot of other difficult decisions to make because we have to offset that.
Well, just a clarification, the Baker-Tilly report did not recommend adding any new positions without identifying a funding source. I think they did recommend if the village has the financial capacity to support the 6 firefighters and a squad vehicle, that it is something that the village should consider. And I think it's a worthwhile consideration. We supported that recommendation, but at this time, we didn't find that unless they're in the absence of a funding source to support that recommendation, we think that it is just as such as written in the report, that when the village is in a position to support that financially, that it is something that the village should consider. I will also offer the fact that the training position is not something that's new with Baker-Tilly. This is something that we've discussed with the former fire chief and even presented information on that need over the last several budget cycles. And so this is something that we've been considering prior to the study. And we think that financially that it makes sense, and also it is, I think, a critical need. And I think the Baker-Tilly report reinforces that need, and we think this is a step in the right direction. I think the village board has an opportunity to continue looking at the financial position of the village through the financial strategic planning process, which I kind of articulated last budget cycle, that any significant increases in the expenses, in the expenditures, given the fact that we're undertaking this financial planning exercise, probably should be contextualized in that regard. And then also, just to cap it off, the Baker-Tilly report acknowledged that we do have a fine fire department right now, and we're doing a great job. And so I do think the addition of the training officer is going to edify what we currently do in a very significant way. So I think it's an opportunity for the village to add this position, and that's sort of the foundation of my recommendation to add this position at this time. And then in terms of all the other recommendations in the Baker-Tilly report, we can continue to, as the fire chief suggested, look at those recommendations and consider them when it is that it's feasible to support them. There are some non-financial recommendations in there some recommendations in there that don't require significant investment in finances. And I think Chief Terry articulated some of those things, and we're going to be moving forward with some of those recommendations. And I think the overhire consideration is another one that we would support as well.
Yeah, I don't need to necessarily speak more, but I do think I hear what you're saying, and my position remains the same, that I'd like to see us do that. It's also not new that we, as a board, were discussing last year that we believed the fire department needed additional spots. We held off on making that decision pending the staffing studies. The staffing studies, both of them supported that hiring additional firefighters would be beneficial to the department, and so that's where I'm at.
Yes, thank you, John, but I think there is some information that not all of our advisory board members have not been part of. And so I wonder if, in order for the Finance Committee to even work towards finding additional revenue sources or having a comprehensive conversation on it, can we, for our next meeting, get some numbers as to what 3, 6, 9 would look like? Because both of the sets of numbers that we had the other night did not, and provide the study for our colleagues here, did not, there were discrepancies in both sets of numbers. So if we could, we don't even know what we would be searching for in total just yet.
Yeah, well, we can certainly answer the question that was raised the last time about the numbers and how Baker Tilly calculated the numbers with our HR department versus how the firefighters calculated their numbers. So we can clarify the difference between the two, but we're looking north of $2 million to support that, and that doesn't include the acquisition of the squad truck, and it doesn't include the pension costs. So that gives you an order of magnitude perspective on what you would be adding to the budget if you were to add those 6 firefighters. And I think it would be, Chief Terry, it would be 6 firefighters and a lieutenant. Is that correct?
So the lieutenant is the training officer, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, because as long as it's the 2 firefighters, it does not require to be a company officer.
Yeah, so,
Yes, sir.
so roughly $2.3 million, but certainly we'll provide the information to clarify the difference between the firefighters and the HR department in Baker Tilly.
Thank you. And then that would give an opportunity for our colleagues to digest the information. But I might just ask for the advisory members of the Finance Committee, because even in looking into this or strategizing for the future, I think it would be good to comprehend. But I might ask for 3, 6, and 9, just to help us with that understanding.
Was this generally just an enlargement of the fire department, or was there a specific program direction that you were headed in?
Yes, sir. So what you're asking in regard to the additional members?
Right, the additional we're talking about here, 3, 5, or 9.
It goes to looking at the efficiency of the vehicles. It goes to taking some of the stress off the larger vehicles, and it would go to spreading the load to more members. You know, if there are more members to take some of these calls in, it reduces it.
So it's generally a enlargement of the
Yes, sir, and it also adds more service redundancy to the department also.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Jim?
So, just standing back from that for a second, because I want to broaden it a little bit to the overtime. Because I look at obviously all the other village departments, and maybe this is a member, Manager Jackson question, because you run about, this year it looks like $900,000 of overtime, and next year it's going to be about $8 million in the budget. So structurally, what causes that? And it's the only department, right, that you have any, what other departments have anything approaching? I don't see any overtime in the police, for example, or in Public Works. I don't think there's. So could you just talk about that, just because that's a continuing discussion? I mean, it's a staffing issue, and it's also, maybe if you could fill it in.
Are you, Trustee Taglia, are you referring to the overtime outlay in the fire department And I think that it's been the village's goal to try to reduce the overtime outlay. It's increased, you know, year over year for probably the last 5 or 6 years. I think we've been committed to working to try to reduce
Right.
the overtime outlay. Obviously, this is a particular issue in the fire department. We don't experience this issue in any of our other departments to this magnitude. So it is a strategic consideration for the fire department. I don't,
Right, so how do you address that in the long term?
more long-term, I think Chief Terry was speaking to
Is it
some
always
of
going
the
to be $1
things.
million?
Let me just back up to the first question before I get to that. Every firefighter paramedic in the village of Oak Park is certified twice. Once as a firefighter by the state of Illinois State Fire Marshal, and then by the Illinois Department of Public Health as a paramedic. Both of these require extensive training before we put them, you know, in the situation that they're acting, say, one-on-one in an ambulance or in the firefighting role. So when we hire somebody that has not gone to or has not been certified by the state fire marshal, they're gone for 9 to 12 weeks, depending on the academy. So when you look at our FTEs, there's a lag. And then when they come back, we have a minimum of 3 weeks, we call it days, where they're training to make sure that they're proficient enough that we feel comfortable. So, you know, we're looking at a 4-month lag of our FTEs saying, hey, we're full, but in reality, we're continuing to acquire overtime. So to your point, is it part of it is the hiring process, and that we need to be comfortable that we're putting good, strong individuals in a place to succeed. So that's some of it. The other thing that we've been working with the manager's office extensively is the way that we look at overtime. We contract with OPRF, for instance, for the ambulance and the paramedics at the football games. So that is an expense that we pay these individuals, and then we get paid back at the end of the year, but we still have that expense. So as we kind of look at what overtime, you know, really is, to answer your question, no, it's not going to be where it always is, because as we understand what goes into overtime, we're able to break that down and take bites of the elephant, if you will, and address each one individually, rather than just saying, you know, overtime is a challenge every year. So, and you will see over the next years, as we approach these individual things, as these hires come in and they come out of the fire academy, they're certified through Loyola and Region 8, you'll start to see that change in overtime. If that answers your question.
Well, just looking forward, I mean, part of the issue is it's a quality of life issue, and it's also
Absolutely.
it's also having the fire department operate on a peak efficiency at all times, and also they have firefighters have time off,
Absolutely.
appropriate time away from the job. So I think that's an important aspect. As far as I can recall, going on the board and been on the board for a long time, we've always had that issue, and it's gotten worse during COVID for various reasons, obviously other reasons too, but it doesn't seem to be being addressed in the long run. So I think it should be.
You know, and I can speak for myself moving forward. This is a very high priority for me, and digging in and understanding what goes into all of that will help alleviate that issue down the road.
Right, and one of the things mentioned, I know that was debated, and we can debate it again at maybe an appropriate time, but that the hiring of additional firefighters would potentially reduce that. That was the hope, or some structural change to allow a reduction in that overtime, both for the cost as well as what it does for the firefighter and their families.
The structural change in hiring is pivotal, because it's that delay when we do have an opening and our lists are expired that we really see that bump. So by addressing changes again in legislature and how we can have an eligibility pool and we can get people onto our list faster and move them through the process, we'll definitely approach one of our biggest hindrances that we've already identified, you know, and that will start to add up to, like you said, quality of life, reducing overtime, and bringing the continuous quality product and service that we offer.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
You know, so some of what you'll hear more from on this topic as we actually look to roll up our sleeves. Looking to our advisory members is that balance between overtime and making sure that our fire department is properly supported. But there's a great deal of strategy that that had been discussed at a study session before the village board on, that was noted in both the Baker Tilly report as well as a report from our fire union on deployment of officers, or not, for our firefighters, that I think probably still requires some comprehension or
Yes.
understanding.
Yes, and the space studies at Station 2 will address that exact point. Both studies address that there's a physical location that needs to be discussed and further understood.
But it has been a long time conversation of what is our proper staffing number. So I appreciate all it's gonna really take, some strong deliberation here from this committee, I think, to balance these needs. Okay? Darren?
Yeah, when we had this conversation 10 days ago or whenever that was, I still haven't come down on like a number that,
Yeah.
And I think that I want to take a step back and look at this problem that we're solving for, which is to reduce overtime, alleviate the stress on our staff. And I am interested in seeing what those numbers would look like, but I also more importantly want to see how does that enact a plan to achieve the overall goal we want. It's not just more, it is better, right? It is a better experience, better outcomes for all involved. So I'm interested in seeing a strategy behind it, in addition to how much it will cost, because that's ultimately, I don't want to take our eyes off the ball and lose that, and and get into an argument about 3, 6, or 9, right? Because
Yeah.
I don't know if that's even the point of those numbers. So that's where I'm at. I have not made a decision about what number I want to see. I just want to solve that problem and come up with the most effective way to do that. And we heard conflicting kind of arguments from 2 different reports on how to achieve that. So that's where I'm looking to find some common ground as a board to figure that out.
Yes.
And I think I agree with that. In fact, I'll admit that I had some confusion before we left that board meeting as to what the Baker Tilly report was really recommending. In reading it, it clearly stated that it was just the one training lieutenant, but there was acknowledgement of this longer term plan, and then through the dialogue there was 6 or 9 thrown out a lot, but I did recognize that not the full board had decided on a number. And that, and I think Trustee Eater said it well, but that's what I was reference to in like that strategy of deployment, and a bunch of other recommendations that came out of the Baker Tilly that work towards the same goal. But it did, on the flip side, we do, when you see injuries, which I think have recently gone down a little bit,
A lot.
but
They've gone down quite a bit.
but that's also a concern, and has a cost to it. So there's, so I just think it means truly understanding the entire full picture.
Madam President, if I can speak, I just want to keep it kind of a clear line of communication around the Baker Tilly report, because the Baker Tilly report did not recommend additional firefighters to solve the overtime problem. In fact, they don't believe that adding firefighters is going to solve the overtime problem. So I just want to make sure that it's clear about sort of what their recommendation was. The staffing on the training, they thought that was a critical need. They also thought that a future consideration would be the additional 6 firefighters in the squad, if the village could be in a position to afford that. So I just want to point that out. And one other thing while I'm talking, I think it would be helpful for the Finance Committee also to consider the information that we'll follow up with that you asked for. But in addition to the information that will be discussed on November 4th in the CIP review. I think it's important to consider the entire context of the village's potential commitments to goals that it's had that are contained in that CIP plan, because at some point there's likely going to be some trade-offs here. If you're talking about the scale of $2.3 million commitment here, and then the magnitude of the commitment being contemplated by a new police station and so forth, there's going to be some serious trade-offs, I think, that you'll need to consider. And I think it'll be helpful for the budget process entirely for us to actually reconcile these interests on November 4th if we want to stick with the current schedule, because I think our goal would be on November 4th is to try to get the Finance Committee to make some final recommendations on the CIP program. And I think that there's some very significant expenses that are being contemplated as part of that budget as well. So,
Any closing comment, please?
I would also be interested in whether any of the revenue recommendations from the Baker-Tilly report could potentially be implemented. In particular, the revenue recommendations related to lift assist in nursing homes and assisted living facilities. I know, I believe River Forest, they provide like sort of for free to their nursing home facilities, but beyond that, the facility would be paying a fee, I think in the range of like $500 per call for a lift assist, which both can reduce the number of calls for service, or could provide a substantial source of revenue if it doesn't reduce the calls for service, and those lift assists can be the kinds of events that cause injuries. So that's one thing. And I do just want to clarify the 2.3 relates to if we were to add 12 staff. I believe the number from the Baker-Tilly financial analysis was it's about $179,000 per firefighter paramedic. So 6 would be about $1,070,000, not $2.3 million. So, and that includes the pension costs estimated by Baker-Tilly. So, yes, I will be, as long as we're going to have coming back to us, here's what 369 would do from a cost perspective and from likely reductions to overtime. Baker-Tilly, when they were speaking to us, they said it wouldn't reduce overtime if you also increase minimum manning. They did say it would reduce overtime if it isn't accompanied by an increase to minimum manning, and each of the 3 Baker-Tilly experts said that independently during that meeting. So I'd like to see both what the cost increases would be, what the likely overtime reductions might be at those levels, and whether any of these additional revenue considerations. I'm not interested in the revenue consideration that would be charging for every ambulance call, but the ones that relate to like those lift assist kind of calls. There were some of those options presented, and I think that could help with offsetting some of these additional costs we're talking about.
Yeah, so we do actually look forward to following up and providing the Finance Committee and the board the numbers. In terms of, we don't believe, just from our expertise, we don't believe that adding the firefighters is going to significantly reduce the overtime. We believe other actions are going to help us reduce the overtime. We do think some of those actions have already been underway. And we're seeing some reductions in the injuries. And also your question about the lift assist and so forth. Chief Terry is already on that with his staff, and so that is something that we're going to be following up with, despite what the budget recommendations are. But certainly, we're happy to provide all the information that's requested, and then certainly it's always the will of the board to decide what you want to do, how you want to do it.
Okay, I'm going to go to John Hedges in 1 second. I'm just going to tack on there for impact fees on development.
If the Baker Tilly isn't suggesting more firefighters, where's that coming from? Where's the suggestion that we need more firefighters coming from?
There's.
Is it staff or?
Well,
I'm not knowing anyone.
No. My
Trying to
only
understand.
pause in answering it directly, there's been outreach from the union, but I'm just trying to wonder. I'm not reflecting upon when it first started. You know, I mean, I think there's a history that, you know, COVID and that maybe even predates some of us sitting at the board table. But, you know, this is also, you know, our chief has only been appointed to this position for a short period of time in this assessment and addressing some of the challenges that exist. We are growing to be a denser community, and we have an aging population. All of these things are whether create a certain inevitability, but at least to understand the, you know, the needs as a finance committee that is looking for that level of accountability.
Okay. Just one.
No, I hear you.
I do have a question. First of all, thank you for presenting, and thanks for your patience. I haven't been here for a while, but I think that's changing starting tonight. So I guess the question I have is the long-term impact of a commitment to hire new, is there any projections? Because it sounds like this will level set, this will be a new, you know, sort of foundational level of investment in the fire department, you know, if this is approved. And so what does that mean to the overall budget, you know, 27, 28, 29? It's a pretty big investment. So, and how so I think it's clear, you know, sort of their injuries, there have been some injuries and things like that. But how has a community, what has a community response or sort of feedback been about the fire department and their services? Is it aligned with, you know, some of the things that have been shared in terms of overtime and maybe quality of service?
So our overtime is high, has been for at least the last 3 or 4 years. Our rating as far as the level of service to our community is also exceptional. And we've got close to the highest rating you can receive. You know, there's, again, when we're having this conversation potentially a year, but I appreciate your question though, because that's exactly why I think we're asking for this data, right? Is we have to responsibly look at the long-term, not only needs for the fire department, but for the village overall, the entire budget, the CIP, all of these things. And we need to understand what's sustainable and balance the needs of our employees and keeping our employees safe and serving our community at the level that they deserve to be cared for.
Right.
I think that both reports give excellent information and is that actually speak directly to some of the questions that you both have this evening. And that if we can come back, then I think the only area that besides for, it was a lot of information for the board members to digest in one meeting. There was just some discrepancies on costs and how you figure that out. That this is the place to take that information in, and then if we're gonna give a recommendation to the full board on hires, including overhires, which, Chief, do you want to explain what overhires are? Because it might also overlap in other departments.
Sure. As the ordinance stands, is my understanding, we have a set number of FTEs set by this body, and long-term injuries, pending retirement, something where we know an individual is not coming back, we have the opportunity right now to go out and hire or promote somebody. So over that number of FTEs, knowing that, you know, in a given amount of time, in a set agreed upon amount of time, that individual will not be with the village for various reasons. When that person leaves, because there's been an overhire, we go back to our allowed FTE number. So we have used that, and we're very grateful for that. And again, it's something that's set by the board and it will allow us to do that.
Great, thanks.
Does that financial implication of that, hiring someone on while the other person's still getting paid, does that figure into this overtime issue?
It's not necessarily an overlap. It's as that person ready to step in as quickly as possible after.
Financially, there's not an overlap.
Not typically.
Well, it actually, it helps out, because if that person isn't overhired, then there will be overtime at time and a half of people that were already on. So bringing somebody on and getting them at their regular rate,
Okay.
which is lower than overtime rate, then, and then the other benefit of something like that is what we just talked about, the weeks or months that they're gone at the academy or getting their IDPH paramedic license sorted out. You know, that goes on while this person is working through retirement, working through work comp or whatever. So they're running much faster than the lag time that we've seen in the past.
Thank you for that correction, yeah. So there's also,
It can, not always, but it can.
yeah, I don't know that we've seen it a lot, but I wouldn't be the one to know. We have some vacancies currently.
4, yes.
We have 4 vacancies, and so that's another recommendation that we saw from the Baker Tilly report is how was it that we could keep the application process moving and keep it open and to, well, you're on the fire and police
Yes, I know.
commission,
I'm
so you
familiar
know
with that area.
exactly how that works, and keep that flowing more regularly so we can fill those vacancies. But that overhire policy, I think, is quite important and honestly needed.
Yes.
Yeah, and just one added thing on the overhire. Currently, I believe from the Baker Tilly report, the average time that a vacancy for a firefighter paramedic is open is 157 days. So when we lose someone because of the structure of the hiring mechanism, it is 5+ months before we're able to replace that person. So if we have 4 vacancies and we don't have folks on the hiring list, as is the case right now, it takes a long time to fill those vacancies. So that's one of the
Suppose
reasons.
it's an average, because if there's a list and we're able to contact, that can be shortened quite a bit. But if we're between tests,
Yes, sir, that's
then it
exactly right.
lengthens out.
Yes. And the challenge that the industry faces, not just Oak Park, is we're all competing for the same quality candidates, right? So we've unfortunately suffered where we have quality candidates, and by the time we get to them to offer them a job, they're already, the next town over.
Right.
So again, that's an industry-wide issue right now, a challenge that we're facing and we're working through with the changing of our eligibility rules.
So in reality, both the reports were useful because one talks about standards of deployment, and another was really talking about all the strategy and staying hired up, strategy and having a squad go out so you don't always have to have your ladder truck go out, all these things. So it's a great roadmap collectively, and we have some serious investment questions to talk about, and timing challenges, a discussion to also have.
So just one more question. How about attrition? What is that like? As it sounds like there's pressure on the current firefighters with overtime.
There is, so the 4 vacancies now are due to retirement,
Okay.
and, you know, that started decades ago, you know, just
Okay.
where people move through, you know, their career naturally. One thing that we're in a good position now is we've been hiring smaller groups of people. Sometimes you'll see a challenge where you bring on a class, say, 10. Well, those 10 individuals are gonna move through their career at the same time, and then you have a huge gap. So, you know, back to what Mr. Hedges was talking about, is this ability to have a constant hiring that we can bring people on right away and it kind of stagger their hire date, which hopefully the other side of that attrition you're asking about is then staggered also.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And not a part of the CIP, you heard in our other earlier finance meetings, we don't have facilities that our station on the north end of town is highly inefficient for our needs as a community. So, Jim, you were gonna add something, I think.
No, I just had a question, not for Chief Cherry, it's a CIP question, just I want, and maybe Donna too. So we have a meeting on the 4th, and you're hoping to wrap up the CIP.
That's
What's
correct.
happening before the 4th? Are we getting more data, more information? Are we gonna review what we have? And then Donna, I was gonna ask her if, just curious about this bond we talked about at the meeting, the bond that the village might float for the Oak Park Avenue and maybe some additional, is that still, is it the 20 million plus the, are you still thinking
Well,
the
I
8
don't-
million? And
Yeah.
just-
Yeah, I mean, we will actually review where the finance committee left off the last time. We will provide some additional information in advance of that meeting
there some
for
changes?
the finance committee to consider and discuss, and particularly as it relates to the whole 5-year cycle. So what you're contemplating in FY '26 and how that might impact what's available to you to finance projects beyond 2026. And then some of, I mean, we've done some things, even like in this instance, we're doing an advance pay on the fire engine.
Yes.
And so that's coming from the fund balance, and that, right, so that has an impact. So we want to talk about, have a conversation about not just FY '26, but 27, 28, 29, 30. And try to look out into the future, to look at what the capacity looks like after FY '26. So I think we're not moving in a different direction that the Finance Committee provided the last time, yet we're just wanting to provide some additional information for you to consider before you make your final decision on what you want to do or what you want to recommend to the full board.
Right, but that recommendation would include funding in terms of a bond, right? And the CIP at the same time, we'll move those.
Yes.
Because they're very closely connected, obviously, because of the Oak Park Avenue for one thing, and then maybe some additional bondable projects that were mentioned, assuming they're in the
Yes.
cards.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
okay, I just want to understand what we're looking at.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry. Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Our next presentation will be of the Neighborhood Services, Director Birch.
All right. Good evening. Jonathan Birch, Assistant Village Manager, Neighborhood Services Director, here to spend a little bit of time talking to you about neighborhood services. Spent a lot of time here in 2025 working through, continuing to focus on our neighborhood-based problem-solving programs and services in a variety of different ways. Some of those things that really stand out over the past year include launching phase 1 of the ECHO program, our continuing work with Hope Fair Housing, with whom we have a contract with currently to do fair housing testing and training. They're actually wrapping up the last of their training this past Monday for housing providers here in Oak Park. working as well on operationalizing both warming and cooling centers for community partners and partnering with others to be able to provide those, especially as, right, it's getting cold outside. So teams hard at work and thinking about what those will be into November, December, and then into the new year. We launched a volunteer management system. So taking hard work that had been done previously by the health department through the Better Impact system, and then trying to grow that out to something that's even larger, getting folks registered in that system, and ultimately being able to use that to be able to coordinate the volunteers that we used as part of the Tour de Proviso event back in earlier this month. We have been working hard in the neighborhood programs team to roll out the new energy efficiency grant programs. So certainly have gotten a chance to get those dollars in the hands of some households already so far this year. And with the additional work that sustainability has done around communicating about those grants, especially here in the fall, we've been fielding many more inquiries recently. So trying to work hard to get even more of those out the door. Next one is the code compliance team definitely worked hard first on the new International Property Maintenance Code that the board adopted back in March, and then rolling that out through our enforcement activities over the course of the year, as well as implementing the gas-powered leaf blower ban that we've had the opportunity to talk about at the board table previously. And then finally hosting events like the Tour de Proviso and associated community fair. Shown on the screen now is the organizational chart for neighborhood services. All this work happens across 4 different divisions, one being our code compliance team that focuses on residential code compliance, including with short-term rentals, rental units overall, condominiums, and other buildings, as well as responding to neighborhood complaints on a variety of residential issues. The neighborhood programs team that you might also think of as the housing team. It works on some of the village's legacy housing programs, but is also working hard and connecting homeowners with financial resources to be able to support them in a variety of different ways, as well as managing and overseeing the actual licensing process for both our short-term rentals and for rental units here in town. The neighborhood partnerships team is new, exciting, right? We have all 3 of those folks hired now. They're working hard. It was not the case when we were chatting this time last year. And that includes both standing up a new Welcome Center experience up front. So, right, you've hopefully all had a chance to meet Carlton and Ellie and the work that they've been doing to make a more inviting space when you're coming into Village Hall and seeking support and services, as well as the work that our neighborhood partnerships administrator, Paula, has been working in terms of actually being able to support their operations as well as community events and then mitigating ongoing neighborhood challenges. And then finally, our community services team. And you'll see there, that is, of course, the location of our ECHO pilot program. You'll see the 2 dashed and outlined position, or the 3 outlined positions that are shown on the chart out of our total 21 FTEs, which are part of that pilot program. Not shown on the chart, but important to know in these times, there are essentially portions of 3 positions. It's slightly less than 2 full FTEs that are funded through our CDBG dollars that are not shown on the chart, but include a portion of our community services administrator, the grants coordinator position in full shown on there, as well as a portion of our budget and revenue analyst. In 2026, got a lot of stuff to work on. The first is definitely working on our comprehensive neighborhood-based engagement framework. You've heard Manager Jackson talk previously about the importance of having sort of an engagement playbook for the community to provide that consistency and support both for internal operating departments as well as the community around what folks should expect and what tools we'll be employing and should be employing when we're going out doing engagement on a wide array of different topics, both small operational changes internally, but as well as like big substantial things, including some important planning activities that the village is undertaking. The next is actually launching our neighborhood registry program. This is something that was identified in the current village board goals that are wrapping up, and our neighborhood partnerships administrator has been working on sort of sketching out what that program would look like, and the budget itself includes some additional resources in order to be able to launch that program in 2026. The goal really being able to help be able to support and cultivate neighborhood organizations across the community is an important way of being able to both gather information and be able to support good placemaking, good community development at the local level in our community, as well as a way to be able to think about ultimately how we bring services that are meaningful and supportive to the different neighborhoods across Oak Park. The next is for our code compliance team to work hard on reviewing our vacant buildings ordinance and neighborhood walk program. So really exploring, we get complaints now about vacant buildings, certainly on the residential side, but being able to take a more comprehensive approach to how we address those, as well as our neighborhood walk program internally. The next piece is evaluating that ECHO pilot phase 1. It is scheduled to end about a year from now. It was originally a 2-year pilot. Our first staff started in January of 2025. So being able to evaluate that over the course of next year. And then the final 2 are both housing related and really are designed to plug into the great work that's happening in development services as part of their zoning code project looking at missing middle housing, thinking about what additional financial incentives might be important to make sure we're not just supporting the development of missing middle housing, but bringing affordability in as part of those sorts of housing changes. And then finally, also thinking about the relationship between our inclusionary housing ordinance and the changes that might occur also as part of that process to make sure, because again, the inclusionary housing ordinance is only a tool that corresponds to the strength in market conditions, development conditions that are happening at that time, and that is also a function of the sorts of things that we're permitting and standards that are in place through our zoning process. In order to accomplish that, in 2026, we are proposing a slight increase in our budget year over year. That includes about 35% of our budget actually being in one-time costs. You'll see that that's slightly less than $1.3 million. The 2 notable line items that contribute to that is, number 1, it includes an amount for Housing Forward to operate the emergency shelter in 2026. We talked about this when having a conversation on the Unhoused Task Force back earlier in September about the sort of need there and challenges around obtaining potential state funding in support of that. It includes that as a potential one-time cost in the budget. The second piece that's included in here is the continuation of the ECHO pilot. Again, right, that's a pilot program with it's designed to sunset or planned to sunset right now at the end of December in 2026, and the amount that's being shown is included as part of the budget for this year. The budget also includes, and if you take a look through the packet, you'll see that there are some increases particularly proposed in the Neighborhood Partnerships Division. Those relate to continuing to stand up operations in that area. It includes 3 new programs, so one being actually rolling out the Neighborhood Registry, including some community grants in order to support neighborhood groups coming together and support their activities. One related to a program called Bikes for All, which is designed to implement, there's a recommendation or a goal in the current board goals designed to think about how we can make use of bikes that are currently obtained or gathered by the police department and being able to get those back out in the hands of residents. And so this is a program to be able to move that forward, to actually work with local bike repair shops to get those bikes fixed up and then get them back out on the streets, either at a very low cost or no cost for households making less than 80% of the area median income, in order to be able to make sure they have bikes to be able to do more active transportation here in town, as well as costs associated with developing the community engagement playbook, particularly supporting good engagement activities in support of that, or as part of the creation of that. The final piece is some costs that are being reallocated and placed in neighborhood services, but were present in the budget in 2025, but were located in other areas. The first of those being security for Village Hall. Since we've stood up the new Welcome Center, the Neighborhood Partnership staff is the team that is now managing the security contract for Village Hall security, and so moving that out of the Finance Division and into Neighborhood Services. And then finally, moving the Government 101 program that this year is currently included in the Communications Department budget, but in 2026 is proposed to be included as part of the Neighborhood Services budget. You'll see this sort of breaks the division's budget, or the department's budget, down by division in each of these various areas. You'll see again the changes that are proposed in one time, or the amount of the budget that is net any one-time costs that are associated with this. You'll notice the administration line item in particular is increasing. That is heavily as a result of the amount is being set aside for the operation of the emergency shelter, and is included in that figure there. You'll notice the increase as part of the neighborhood partnerships line. That is for the programs that we just discussed. And then this is looking at it sort of like by large area. You can see the one-time costs that are shown up in here as a specific line item of its own. With that, questions?
I have a couple.
Go ahead.
Real quick. So, is the neighborhood registry what we discussed previously, where we were going to survey all the buildings? And you had said there may be some additional cost because the board had given a direction to do it a certain way. Remember, you were there.
Oh, are you talking about for the rental licensing code?
Is it, am I
No,
getting
no,
it?
that's not right. You can go ahead and take a crack at it, Jonathan, and explain. Basically, it's formalizing a program to engage neighborhood groups in the community, so that we can have better communication with them.
Okay.
Organize them, support them, also engage with them around some of our our initiatives in the village. Coordinate communication between the neighbors as well as our village departments. So a good way to do that, and the way cities do that, is actually provide a formal way for groups to organize and actually designate contacts, put that information in a registry, so that information is available to us so we can contact people and notify people. Also engage neighbors on a geographic basis around specific issues of concern in their area in a constructive, proactive manner. And so it's really a method to actually support some really effective, proactive, strategic community engagement and building relationships with the neighbors throughout the community. So you want to add to it?
I think the only thing I'd contrast it with is, I believe, and you should correct me if I'm wrong, but you're thinking of the conversation we had on doing the survey to understand the racial ethnic composition of multifamily building owners. That is not included in the budget proposal for this year.
Okay, so it's not, it's still in the future?
Correct.
Okay, it's not in the budget at all. And just one other question is that, and I appreciate you splitting out the one-time costs. I think that's a nice way. It's something new I'm seeing here. So, do you always have like large one-time costs? I'm just curious, because one-time cost, it always reoccurs as a continuing cost.
So that's a great question. What I'll say is, neighborhood services is a new department standing on its own right now that is in the process of piloting, in this case, a new program area, and the other one being hopefully what really will be a one-time cost, because the state will come through with the money either later on this year or in future years in order to support the operation of the emergency shelter here in Oak Park.
Okay, so your hope is that
That's correct.
that your budget, on the second one, the first one, the budget net is where you want to be eventually. So,
Yeah.
good, got it. Thank you very much.
Okay, Derek?
Thank you. This is great. That's my first question, and maybe a question for you, might be a question for Village Manager Jackson. In the sort of letter at the top of the budget book, you have a bulleted list of underfunded and unfunded projects, and listed on there was the ECHO pilot program. So I'm just kind of curious. I think the answer is that just because the funding is considered temporary, right? It's only funded through the end of 2026, and so that's why it ended up on that list. Is that correct? That's correct.
Correct.
Okay, great. I'm reading it right. All right. And then the phase 2 is obviously also on that list, but not included at all here because we haven't talked about doing it yet, right?
So what's included in the budget for this year is the amount that remained unspent from the original amount that the board originally set aside several years ago now. So it does give us flexibility to start on that if a decision were to be made, but it doesn't sort of fully doesn't have an organization or anything else tied to it right now. It's just in there as a placeholder.
Okay. And what would that look like if we did want to move forward on that? Is that it's a follow-up board meeting and then we do a budget amendment? Is that what that would look like in practice if we were to move with the phase 2?
Oh, with the phase 2 is, we put phase 2 on pause. We've had, and Trustee Eater, we can share some information with you, and even maybe Trustee Taglia, maybe to get up to speed on where we are with with the Echo pilot.
Okay.
The second phase was about alternative crisis, mental health crisis response. There were two sort of considerations. One, an in-house option to expand ACO to provide that service. And then there was, I think, an appeal from Thrive to actually provide that second phase. There is, I'm not going to be able to spell out the acronym, but the CESA law that will enable the 911 our dispatch service to dispatch mental health crisis calls, which is not available to us now. So once that's implemented and it's available to us, that from our point of view was the point at which we needed to probably contemplate phase two, because phase two was about dispatching, being able to dispatch. And one of the reasons now that I'm talking about this is that we propose that we actually as a village do the second phase is because we oversee the police department and fire operations, and also we partially oversee the 911 operations. We could probably act on an interim basis until the CESA law is implemented. We could actually probably we could actually be dispatched to calls, right? Whereas a group like an external group could not. So I don't think we got to a point where we just paused and said, hey, do we want to do it in-house? Should it be an external group? And if it's an external group, then the CESA law needs to be implemented in order to enable the dispatch function to occur.
Okay.
There's a lot more to it than that, but that's
Okay, and I think I've heard of that law. And I think it was delayed by the state till 2027.
yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay. Understood. Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that additional context. It's possible some of those conversations happened before I joined. I was here for one Echo conversation, but maybe that's only part of the picture. Second question I have, so obviously we have additional security at Village Hall right now in the parking lot. I'm just curious, is that included here, or is that considered temporary? How is that funded currently right now, just for information?
So it is not currently included in the budget for next year. It was included as an additional cost for this year.
Yeah.
We had some existing flexibility within a portion of that budget, though if we went over, and I think Manager Jackson advised this originally, if we went over, then we would need to come seek, obviously, an amendment from you all in order to allocate additional funds in order to be able to support that.
Do we know how long we have until that conversation has to come back?
It'll probably be before the end of the year, Craig, right? I mean, essentially, we budgeted for security services for the year. We didn't have any appropriations for the temporary funding for the parking lot.
Right.
So very likely, we're going to run out of money for the current year for the security services, so we'll need to get a budget amendment in order to continue to support just the regular security.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think ICE is here temporarily, so we may have to have that conversation and think about maybe a more medium-term solution. Okay.
Okay.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
I have a question. Well, a couple of questions. Thanks. I'm learning a ton. So thank you for sharing this. So I'm looking at some of the neighborhood programs, partnerships, and community services specifically. So I'm curious as to, is there a marketing budget for, awareness? What's the awareness in the community of these programs? How is it being marketed? Is it being marketed? And who is the ideal person or person in the community to market it to? And lastly, utilization. Like, how are the programs being utilized currently? I know I threw a lot of stuff there, but they're all sort of connected in terms of awareness, marketing, utilization, and then sort of who's the person or who are the families that could benefit most from the programs.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. So best way to think about it is it depends on which program we're talking about. So some, like Echo, have spent, I think, more. Maybe you've received a community mailer. I know I got one at home about it. Maybe others did earlier this fall.
Can you
They've seen
remind
some
me
other.
what's ECHO?
Echo, Engaging Community for Healthy Outcomes. It is the phase one of our alternative response to calls for service.
Okay.
So folks, everybody in the town should have received one of those. We've been working with our great communications team, including Joe Kreml, to produce videos and have other marketing activities that we produce as part of that as well. So, you know, in that place, we've spent, I think, relatively more time, effort, and energy on marketing for that piece. I'll contrast that with some of our more traditional residential rehabilitation, small rehab housing programs that need to spend more on that. The board has already approved this year revised guidelines for the residential rehabilitation program. So the team is planning on making use of its marketing budget next year in order to blast more information out about those. I think the last time that those ones actually had new marketing materials produced for them was prior to COVID. So it's time for a refresh. There's a new name. We could get some, we have a new logo. We could just make them look a little nicer than what it is that we're using right now. Some of the other programs, especially those that are in the Neighborhood Partnerships Division, are new. So we're in the process of marketing or getting ready to market them right now. So our Neighborhood Registry program is something that we're going to launch in 26. So there hasn't been marketing yet, but there will in the future. Similarly, our Government 101 program, which you might also think is a like leadership academy or a chance for like local leaders to cultivate, grow, and educate them about their village government and how we work and how they can be connected to that. That is something that hopefully we're going to have our first run of that in January. And as we gear up for that, there is more marketing that's coming. I've had a standing bi-week or every other week meeting with communications teams. So you should start seeing more about that coming out here in November and December in order to make sure we're driving engagement and support for that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
On the Housing Forward Emergency Shelter line item, you said hopefully the state funds it. So I know there was an amount appropriated for it that wasn't funded, and there wasn't a revenue source tied to it. Some long, very Springfield discussion. What are the prospects on the state funding that? Do we have any sense of whether Cook County might be able to free up some money there, or is this for right now we're just going it alone? Do we have any prognosis? Any what we expect to happen there?
I wish I could put on my hat and say like, yes, I know, but I don't. You know, we continue to follow up with Housing Forward and the advocacy and support that they're doing at the state level as part of many other shelters that were in a similar position who took actions relying on anticipating that funding like this would come through this year in order to be able to support their operations. They have not received additional information from the state right now. That said, we have been and have standing meetings with the county and have brought this up and are trying to see whether there might be revenue sources from their money that could help offset some of these costs, but nothing solid to report as of yet on that.
Obviously, this is a very important investment in the work we're doing around homelessness, and it would be lovely if we could share that burden with the state of the county, because that would certainly ease some of the budget pain we have. $600,000 is not a small amount of money.
John?
Just one brief question. You must have had a financial plan when you started moving in this organization forward. Is this budget consistent with that plan?
For neighborhood services?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Anything, Greg?
I know this literally just happened 2 nights ago. The living room project you guys talked about, would that be included in your division?
It would
potentially?
It would be potentially. It is not in here currently.
Yeah, no, I knew it wouldn't be in here.
It was just published.
Yeah, I know, it was literally just 2 days ago.
The living room conversation.
Yeah, it was literally just 2 days, so I know it's not gonna be in here. Yeah, I don't know where you guys landed, if that's something that has to be considered still for 26. It's not
in here.
Oh, no, it's not in here because we just talked about it. Was it
Tuesday?
Oh, that was just Tuesday. It was just Tuesday. I was going to say last week, but it was Tuesday. So it was refer to the Finance Committee. So it will be on the agenda for November 4th for the Finance Committee to identify a funding source to support it. And the request, remember, was for a one-time commitment, 150 for 3 years, 450 total. Yeah. And yes, should it be advanced, it would be in Jonathan's area.
And I do think some of the ongoing work of this committee is that future year discussion too. The Finance Committee, who was only just mentioned, not discussed, could decide to recommend like a tiered 150 for the first year, 100,000 for the second year, maybe 75 for the third year, in trying to encourage additional relationships, including with Cook County, or some of what we've discussed tonight, not all, does overlap with township work. And so there might be some opportunity to just keep strengthening that relationship. Their budget year, as we've said before, is on a different schedule. They're through April. So those discussions, I think, are productive at this time. Maybe, I think, in a good place than in comparable to, more recent history, but nothing that can be predicted. Nothing that, we can say, just like grants and other things. We only can go for them. I only just learned about something called 211.
Yes.
And and I was just looking on their dashboard. Do you know about 211?
I do, right? It's a
Better than me.
partnership between Cook County and United Way and the city of Chicago to be a hub for, I think, primarily social service, but sort of like all non-emergency calls. Yeah. And I know they were talking about it for a long time. It was exciting to see it move forward. A long time in development to get there.
Well, they do have some data from our zip code, and some contacts by month. They're not huge numbers, but they have, although when I search some of the partners that we tend to lean in on, they're not listed in here really much. They really seem to be referring to places in the city. I don't know, maybe there's room for growth, room for those conversations. The investments we make here in Oak Park, I think we benefit from at least politically seeking a regional approach, because like the living room wouldn't be limited to just Oak Park residents. Are you able to give a very brief what the living room is for our colleagues, because we've mentioned it and they may not have seen the paper just yet?
Sure. So the Community Mental Health Board approached the Village Board about the idea of funding a pilot here in Oak Park over a 3-year period to be able to stand up a living room concept, which you may be familiar with, or if you wanted to see what one looked like, you could go down to Summit or LaGrange. Those are two of the ones that are closest to where we are right now. It's designed to be a very sort of like open place that you could go when you're potentially experiencing a mental health crisis or challenge, and just a safe place to be able to go in order to get some services and connections with services in order to be able to support that. It would operate between 12, so noon, and like 8 p.m. at night, and it would be located, it'd be done in partnership with NAMI and potentially located near their location on South Oak Park Avenue.
Yeah, so then to just reiterate, it's, the board has provided direction of interest, but to refer it to this committee for how to pay for it. So what would that timing look like then? Similar to the last discussion on firefighters, maybe November 4th, or do we not know yet?
Yeah, November 4th.
Okay.
For this one? For this?
For the living room?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
You have recommendations? You will give us recommendations on how to pay for it? Other than the levy?
Well, I didn't say that.
We have 60 minutes to figure
We
it
have
out.
one.
Talk about it on the 4th.
I have a recommendation. The township. That's my recommendation.
Okay.
But that's another story.
I think we'll anticipate also receiving more information from the Community Mental Health Board and Township as to their capacity as well. But let's, any other questions on neighborhood services?
I just had one.
Please.
So I know in your nice little org chart, some of those, I think the grants coordinator, right, and then parts of the the grants coordinator boss covered by CDBG. If those go away, is there a contingency to absorb those expenses? If those don't come through, or
So if those went
I know
away-
it's putting you on the spot. Like, no, we're just getting rid of some spots. But
Yeah, I mean, I'll answer that. And, in the cover letter, the one thing is not in the back is, the contingency. So, from my perspective, the contingency is a fund balance, and that's one of those things that I think is something that we need to pay attention to and perhaps reserve some funding in the event that we have a challenge. And right now, our CDBG entitlement is, and I would regard the challenge as a temporary challenge, but
1.5.
1.5 million.
Yeah. And that's right, we were just talking here about the staffing component. There's obviously a sizable amount, almost 600,000 we've talked previously, that goes to support infrastructure projects through the CIP, as well as an additional about 235,000 that goes to a variety of different service organizations across the community to support the great public service activities that they do here to support our community.
Okay. Any additional questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Our next presentation will be from Director Olson for Public Health.
Hello.
All right, good morning, good evening, everyone. Greg Olson, the Public Health Manager, or Public Health Director here. So, the Health Department's mission statement, we are to provide services to prepare and respond to community health needs, prevent injuries, communicable and chronic diseases, to create equitable systems that promote health for the community and protect the residents and employees in the village through public health services and education. And I threw a little tidbit at the bottom. This is from the Illinois State Local Health Department Code. And they state that when possible, where possible, it is in the best interest of Illinois citizens to have public health services delivered at the local level by a local health department. So Oak Park's health department is a certified health department, and it's been here since 1948. In the state of Illinois, there are 97 certified health departments, and of the 97, only 5 of them are at the municipal level. And so Oak Park is fortunate to have a certified health department, being one of those 5. So some of the programs that we offer the community: food safety, food protection, anything from grocery stores to gas stations, farmers markets, temp events, restaurants, anything that involves food. Communicable disease prevention, surveillance for HIV, AIDS, and STIs, childhood lead poisoning, tobacco complaints, West Nile virus, body art, public health emergency preparedness, farmers market, and everyone's favorite, rat control.
Yeah.
So you've heard certified health department, and there's other health departments too. And I know that gets a little confusing. So I know there's some jurisdictions that have a health department, and they have health inspectors that do food inspections. So what's the difference between what we do? The main thing is that a certified health department has been shown to offer the core public health functions. So in addition to food safety, we also offer the list that I basically just went through: emergency preparedness, disease surveillance, and community health outreach. But it's like, okay, that's great, but we still get asked the question, okay, so why should we have a certified health department? The big answer is mainly because being certified opens up doors for grant opportunities from the state. It also ensures that local specifics are taken into consideration when we go about our health planning. So the needs of the Oak Park community aren't the same as the needs in central Illinois, so we're able to locally adapt whatever our program is to the specific needs. And another big reason is because of direct access to medical interventions. An example of this is the COVID vaccine. So when it first came out, the vaccine wasn't available in pharmacies, wasn't available at doctor's offices. The state pushed the vaccine out to all the 97 certified health departments, and those health departments were tasked with setting up a mass vaccination clinic for their community. And that's one of the core services that our staff train on, prepare for. So Oak Park was, again, fortunate to have early access to those types of vaccines. This is our current org chart. One thing I would like to draw your attention to is the 4 positions that have the dotted lines. Those are all 100% grant-funded positions. Starting on the left side, we have our public health analyst and our epidemiologist. Those are both funded by state grants. And then we have our environmental health supervisor and our health education manager, which are both ARPA funded, which goes until the end of 2026. And I'll come back to that in a bit. So some of the things that we're looking forward to in 2026 is, as a certified health department, we're required to do a community health assessment where we identify health priorities within the community, and then we put together a community health intervention plan, which essentially says how we're going to go about tackling those priorities. And we are currently in the middle of that process, so we'll hopefully have some information that we can share to the public early next year. Want to embed health equity in our programs going forward and start examining the social determinants of health, which I'll elaborate on in just a bit. We're also looking to create a referral network that will help uninsured, underinsured individuals get the healthcare services that they need quickly. One thing that I'm big on in the health department is transparency. So I would like to, one of the goals I'm having is to have an interactive dashboard that shows various health metrics specific to our community, local demographics, and I would also love to have our food inspections freely available that we can search so you wouldn't have to do FOIA requests all the time. We're looking forward to partnering with our community organization partners to have a cohesive vaccine education campaign. And then one thing that we're excited about is reestablishing our regular meetings with community partners for emergency preparedness situations. So those partners, we've met with the school district recently regarding, I can't remember exactly what that one was about, but we're reestablishing those meetings. But when we get to the finance aspect of it, so in 2025, our budget was just over $2 million. For 26, we're requesting a little over 2.2 million. So that's an increase of about 210,000. And the bulk of that is due to the rising rates of insurance, essentially. And then the other little tiny chunk is about a $10,000 to $11,000 increase in our rat abatement contract with our pest control operator. The one-time cost associated with us is just for our 2 ARPA-funded positions. Some noteworthy changes. So when I started earlier this year, getting to know the department, getting to know staff in Village Hall, getting to know the community, then I started digging into our grant finances and started moving some things around and was able to restructure a number of our grants that moved more funding to salary and more funding to our operational costs, which then goes to help lessen the amount of money that has to come from the village's purse. Because essentially that's what our grants are for. They're for our personnel and for our operations. And, yeah. So right here in the middle are estimated expenses from all funds. Here's where that 210,000 comes from. We also are getting a slight increase in our grants for this next coming year. So it's about $52,000 increase, which really brings down our net revenue expenses to about $158,000. So with that number in mind, right here is the bulk of that 158, which is our fringe and salary benefits, which is about a 145 increase. You can also see that due to shifting some things around with our grants, the village is paying $14,000 less for salaries, as well as $42,000 less for operational costs. And specifically from our health grants, we're contributing about $80,000 more towards our regular salary, about $8,000 more towards fringe benefits, and $55,000 more towards operational expenses. So one thing I touched on earlier was our two ARPA-funded positions. This is our biggest need going forward. So the ARPA funding runs out, they go through end of 2026. So that's really when we need to start having this conversation about these positions, because these two positions are vital to how our health department operates. Currently, this is essentially the job duties and work assignments of all of our divisions. To say how my old boss at Evanston used to say, we're small but mighty. That's exactly how the health department is here. We're small, but we're mighty. We do a lot of work around the community. And when we do it well, you guys don't know about it and you don't hear about it, because that's what public health does. That's kind of the hard part of getting our name out there, because it's kind of hard to justify when something doesn't happen. But if those two positions, the environmental health supervisor and the health education manager, weren't going to be extended, then all of the health education programming would have to be overseen by the public health director, along with all of the environmental health activities, which includes all of animal control. And not only would this bog down administrative tasks, lead to likely poorer customer service, it really impedes any sort of strategic direction or any time and energy put towards future thinking when it comes to health. So it would basically just hinder our department's ability to deliver these public health services. And then lastly, when I mention public health services, there's really two aspects to it. One being programming and activities for current day, things that impact us today. And so that's stuff like enforcing health regulations, tracking and responding to communicable diseases, providing health guidelines, preparing and planning for emergencies, those sorts of things. The other aspect of public health is a growing aspect of the field in public health in general, and that's really looking at programming activities that we can do that can impact the health of current or impact the health of future generations down the road. And this really consists of strengthening our partnerships with our community organizations, preparing for changing age demographics. And an aging community not only leads to more specific programming, but it also leads to a potential higher prevalence and a more need to focus on the issue of ageism, which I know is what the chair of the Aging Commission has brought up on a number of times. But the big things when we're looking at programming for the future is embedding health equity in pretty much all the work that we do, along with addressing the social determinants of health. And you may have heard that phrase before. If you haven't, essentially it's all of the non-medical factors that go into impacting our health. Because essentially what we're seeing is that our health is essentially a reflection of the environment that we live in. Our social environment, our built environment, economic environment, and those are the things that we really need to start focusing on by embedding equity, embedding health equity, having a health lens in all the policies that we do. And I just want to, one example of non-health sector doing a program that impacts, that looks at it from a health lens would be our Vision Zero program. I feel like they did a really good job of looking at health by saying, okay, how can we lessen fatalities, lessen injuries, but also how can we encourage people to be more active, which in the long run will benefit people's health. But, you know, if that's something the board would like to hear more, I'd be more than happy to kind of come back and get into more of the nitty-gritty with equity and social determinants and all that. But that'll be for another time. So that's the public health operations going into next year. And I'd be happy to take any questions.
Questions?
Are all of these roles currently filled, or where are there present vacancies?
Correct. We don't have any vacancies right now.
Okay.
We have our own certified health department, 1 of 5. So if we go to River Forest, which I don't think they have a certified health department, what kind of services do they get in terms of health? And I assume it's from Cook County.
Correct.
Is it different than what we provide?
Well, the services should be the same, but it's the, I guess, attention that you would get. Because at the Cook County level, the Cook County Health Department has to amass for that giant amount of people that they have there, whereas us, it's the 4.5 square miles that our health department focuses on. So that's why in situations like COVID, the big benefit of Oak Park residents is that you were able to get that COVID vaccine. Even though if you were in Forest Park next door, you wouldn't be able to come here. You would have to go to whichever other ones that were going on. So there are those sorts of benefits.
But we as Oak Park taxpayers are still paying that county tax that supports the health department, right? Do we get any credit from Cook County that the fact that we're doing all this work that they don't have to do? Is there any way of any reciprocation?
That is an excellent question. That I am not sure on, actually.
Okay, well, you don't have to answer tonight.
Yeah.
I was just curious about it because it seems that they should in some way. I don't think it'd probably be a cash or something like that, but maybe there's some grants or things like that that we might be preferable because they're not spending money on the same money on our residents as they would for River Forest.
And one thing I will say though is, you know, in public health, we're not looking to make a dollar or anything like that. You know, we're not competing businesses. If we have a program that works great, we will tell our neighboring jurisdictions like, hey, you guys should give this a try. It's awesome. We'll help you how to do it. And that's what we've noticed with Cook County. They're incredible neighbors for us and incredible partners. One aspect is that they've been, our new emergency notification system is a system that is owned by Cook County, but they offer it to the jurisdictions within Cook County to use as well. So they're great neighbors to have with, but that is a great question, though. I want to look into that one.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Derek?
Yes, I have 2. And this is another thing that's before my time. Can you share a little bit more about why the temporary ARPA positions are so high up in the org chart? Is there, just Because we knew it was temporary. We'd have to fill those gaps. Just curious about that history.
Yeah.
I know that's before your time, too.
Yeah, it is before my time. I feel like, COVID really wreaked a lot of havoc. Mentioned it earlier with fire, how people get burned out. And public health staff were no exception to that. And I feel that caused the turnover to start happening. And yeah, I feel like they recognized that we would need those two manager positions in order to open up more strategic thinking, because otherwise all that stuff has to fall on somewhere else.
So those were created like with the ARPA funds. Those positions didn't exist before?
They previously, in some form or fashion, existed historically. The health department shrank over the years, and then, yes. So these positions are actually returning. And I think the environmental health manager is required we're actually required to have that position in order to receive the health protection grant. That's what I've heard, but.
Yeah, I believe that was, what's required is the inspectors have to work under a licensed environmental health practitioner. And at the time, I think the director did not have that license.
That's correct.
So that's why that position was needed.
Yeah.
And do you have that license?
I do.
So I want Lisa Shelley to talk a little bit about the history. And I think, as Director Olson suggested, there's going to be some opportunities to kind of review the history of the health department later on. I think it's probably a good idea. We're going to be working on the I-plan. It's a good idea to continue to review and articulate the public health operations and its strategic benefit for the community. And him being a new director here in the village, it's an opportunity for him to share perspective. And you've heard some of the things that he's interested in advancing health equity and really trying to focus on the social determinants of health and building partnerships with our nonprofit organizations here that are serving in a health capacity. So there's some things that he wants to share more about. But let Lisa talk a little bit about the history and the ARPA positions.
Yes, good evening, Lisa Shelley, Deputy Village Manager. I was here at the time that the board had authorized those ARPA funds for those positions. As both Manager Jackson said and Director Olson, over time, the health department has had a varying number of FTEs. So historically, supervisors such as those positions may have existed, but in 2019 and 2020, and then 2021, when I believe it was August of 21 when the ARPA funds came through, those two positions did not exist, and the director was directly supervising all those functions. And so, as was definitely eligible under ARPA funds, obviously the attention of the director needed to focus on the ARPA response in the community. And you could use ARPA funds to help support the department during that time so that the director can stay focused on all the rules, the regulations that were coming out. And then these two individuals were then going to keep operations running in those two areas as much as possible. And that was the intent. And they knew, obviously, that it was for a limited period of time, but that's how those were established. So.
And so I think playing this forward a little bit, I see these are funded through the end of 2026, so we should expect in 2027, we want to keep these positions. We're going to see a bump in the salary costs for this department to keep this current staffing level, correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. Second question, bit of a pivot. How are you handling the misinformation that we are getting from our own federal government on health?
It's a whirlwind. Yeah, there's no turning it off, essentially. That's one of the things I noticed during COVID. It's either you work through the whole entire thing, or you're like, man, this is great. I don't have to go to work. This is awesome. But in public health, you can't turn it off, and I feel like the same thing is going on right now. It's unfortunate that the CDC has gone in the direction that it has. It's no longer looked at as as trustworthy as it was. I mean, the state of Illinois put out its own vaccine recommendations because we can rely on ACIP at the federal level. So really, public health is incredibly local. So I feel that's why this is a very important time to connect with our community organizations, our partners, and strengthen that relationship so that when we put out messages, it's not looked at, oh, that's just an extension of the CDC. So it's an uphill battle.
I agree that the strategy you have seems like that's the winning strategy. Is it's all local, and so that's where you build those communication trust, bridges. That makes sense. Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Jim?
Just a few comments and questions. I think as the year goes on, those two positions, it sounds like you want to continue, obviously. I'd like to hear what that would look like in terms of early on, the cost, and what you're seeing in terms of benefit. I think that would be an important thing to talk about. And obviously, you clearly think there are benefits, and and you can see there are, but I just want to hear them spelled out. I would like to hear about the societal impacts of, as you mentioned, some of the extraneous things that impact people's health. I think that would be a great forum, perhaps sometime, at some point in the future. But in regards to, there's one other thing. The insurance increase. To what extent are we self-insured or no in this part? I mean, what are we seeing that's causing an increase to the health? It's health.
It's the health insurance.
So you're talking about the employees' health benefits.
That's correct.
And that is part of what we have an insurance. I know we just saw an item on the agenda, a consent item,
That was
where
it.
we increased and we changed the benefits around.
That's
and
right.
Watered them down a bit.
And the increase was, and it's, the entire market is up and.
Right.
Yeah.
But are we seeing, we have an insurance fund, are we seeing that I didn't get into that yet because I haven't seen it, but is it being depleted? Is that what's happening?
No, it's not being depleted.
Yeah,
but
the self-insurance fund is separate from our health insurance.
Oh, okay, so we're talking about self-insurance.
But the reserve fund for the health insurance is not depleted. If you're talking about the reserve fund.
It's not depleting? Oh,
Right.
Yes.
So we have a sufficient reserve in our health insurance reserve.
But what was causing this then?
It's just the rates of
what?
of the health.
Health insurance?
Yes, health
benefits.
insurance.
So, but don't we, a lot of those get passed on. Some of them don't, obviously, if they're a chunk of them don't get
Well, we pay, and then the employee has to pay a share as well. So
small,
it's,
okay.
yeah, so the rate that we were able to negotiate, I think is 9.5% or something like that, which is, we're 8.5, so we landed at 8. That's even better than
That
what.
comes in your budget? I mean,
Well, it's across the village. I don't know, Mary, if you want to get up, you
right,
guys
but
want to talk about.
is this the effect in your particular budget?
It's affecting everyone's health. Yeah, it's affecting all the departmental budgets.
But it doesn't come in the health budget.
Well, the staffing cost.
Yeah, but they only have
Sir, it does affect their fringe benefits.
Yes.
So each department's fringe benefits will cover their health.
Right.
Their IRMF contributions, except for the public safety. So yes, the percentage increase does impact his overall bottom line.
Okay.
And with his grant-funded positions, he may, depending on the program, may be able to pass some of that cost on to the grantor, but not in all cases can he do so.
So every department has the same
Yes, sir.
impact, but I only see it listed here. That's why I don't think I saw it
In
spelled out
each
on the.
department's budget, you'll see the fringe benefits.
Right,
And the
right.
fringe benefits, you'll see that line costed into there.
I was just saying because it was called out in this particular budget versus the other ones. So far, it hasn't been. So, anyway.
Yeah, I think you'll see it. It may not be in every single presentation, but you'll
Okay,
see.
I'm just trying to get.
In some of the presentations, I think this is Director Olson really trying to point out
What
where
impact?
his cost increases are most occurring, where the significant
That's all.
impact is.
I was just
right?
trying to get my.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and I think, but this is something that's impacting every department overall, and I think I even identified this as a significant issue in the letter, in the open, with the cover letter for the budget. Donna?
Derek, did you?
Yeah, I was going to say with Greg's, his department is a little unusual because some of his people work in in the general fund and some are in individual funds. So just as Mary stated, some of the grants, we can put the individual, the salary in the grant, but we can't put the fringe benefits in there.
Okay.
And so the fringe benefits could be showing in general where the salary is being covered by the grant. So his is a little unique where you probably won't see it in any other fund because the health department crosses a lot of different funds, including the general fund.
Got it. Thank you. That's.
No, I'm good.
Derek, you're good? Okay, so then just, I think we already know the answer, and it says grant funded through, for the public health analyst. So then currently in your budget is the rest of that salary for July through the end of the year?
For the analyst?
Yeah.
So as it's budgeted right now, it's through June. We do have other grants. One of our grants goes through November 2027 that we do have some wiggle room to move funds around if we want to do any sort of line item transfer with the state to keep that position on for the year.
Okay, but currently in your budget how is the second half of the year reflected for this public health analyst?
So currently it's just through June.
Okay, so, all right. And so then if you would be looking mid-year to come with a budget amendment?
Correct, yep.
And can you talk a little bit about whether you do currently have partnerships ongoing, whether educational or coalition building with other governmental bodies and agencies?
Yeah, so that's part of our I-Plan process. We are actually meeting with our core I-Plan group, which is about 6 or 7 different organizations throughout the community. And then from there, we will discuss all the data that we were able to dig up and go through priority listings. And then we'll come back with a much larger group of about 20 different organizations throughout the community where everyone will be able to have input into the process. And I feel like I would like to use this as an opportunity to sort of introduce, say hi, and start fresh with some organizations and build our relationships from there.
Okay, so in a year from now, you might have some of those working groups that are intergovernmental, whether
correct,
it's on. So then currently the health, and that was spelled out in some of your, goals for 2026 and priorities, but the health education manager and the community health advisor, currently, what's the difference in their 2 job descriptions?
So one is mainly more focused on health promotion, and the other is more focused on the policy aspect of health equity, social determinants of health, that sort of thing, of crafting together our community health assessment plan as well as our implementation plan. So they're similar, they work very well together, but they have slight different focuses.
Okay. Okay, but currently we don't have like a relationship with the high school or.
Yeah, no, we do have relationships with the high school, with the school districts. During the measles outbreak that happened in Cook County, the school district, we worked with them about messaging, outreach to the parents. Our emergency preparedness coordinator, he held a reunification drill for emergency preparedness for the schools. So in case there was an incident that had to occur, how would we evacuate children? Where would we go? So we do have those working relationships with the school district as well.
Yeah, the gun violence prevention education that we've been doing with them as well. So yeah, there's a number of things that we're doing with the school districts. And we have this ongoing tri-agency relationship that where multiple departments push in, and public health has been a part of that experience too. Some even working with Public Works to some extent on the traffic issues.
All right, so I may have done this before, but I'll just highlight that there is an Illinois Youth Survey done at the high school every other year that identifies their key concerns in health, whether it be depression, where our use is with drugs and alcohol, and including eating habits and whether and home life. So it's a great place to reflect on where some additional new coalition building could benefit the community at large.
Thank you.
All right.
Can I mention one other thing?
Sure.
Is that just the last thing, is the emergency preparedness planning that you're doing. I think that's really important, especially given we're more prone to environmental impacts from extreme temperatures, high heat, sub-zero at times, but mostly high heat, lately. So I would just say that if that culminates in a plan, I'd really be interested in seeing that. It sounds like, do you think in 2026 it'll result in a formal plan?
Yeah, we have a number of plans for the village, an all hazards plan that has annexes for different situations, and any sort of health emergency is taken over by the health department, so infectious disease, anything like that. But extreme weather falls under that purview as well, and we do have a sort of outline of it that can plug and play depending on the scale of what the incident is. But
Great.
We'd be happy to come back and give a little bit more specifics on that.
I'd love to see that. And also the fact that when these things do happen, I do see that kind of and maybe it'll be different now, but kind of somewhat of a mixed message. We don't know who's, like the township, should the township do something? Is the village responsible? Is the fire department, the police? Who's in charge? So it'd be nice to see that really coordinated at some point and buttoned up in terms of
Definitely.
who does what.
And I feel like what I mentioned earlier about our emergency notification system through Cook County, that was one of the questions we had was, if a tornado comes through this area,
right,
who will they be getting a message from? And essentially, it would go out to their network, all of Cook County.
Sure.
So it would be one unified message, and that's one of the benefits of using this sort of shared program with local jurisdictions and Cook County at large, is that we have more of a cohesive sort of message, so you're not getting, bombarded, essentially.
One last thing is, like, in the event of a big power outage during a extreme heat condition, the seniors and the people that are homeless, of course, but seniors who are inside in a heated, in a room that gets so hot. Like, I remember the great heat wave in Chicago in the 90s when it was 112 degrees at 10 o'clock at night. That kind of a thing. We didn't lose power in Oak Park, but they did in Chicago in big parts, and it was a big issue. A lot of people died. So thank you. That's great that you're looking into those things.
Just thank you for bringing that up, Jim. I know that's something that OPCAN's been really interested in learning more about what the emergency preparedness plan and frankly resilience looks like, as the effects of climate change are inescapable at this point. So it's only going to get worse before it gets better. So thank you for bringing that up. And I'm also, +1, would love to hear more about those plans as they come together.
Great. Thank you.
I'm going to speak to this just for a second. I think that's exciting, actually, because, we've been doing some work in this space, and I think our emergency management coordinator has been, I think Lee has been here for 2 years now, and he's been doing a lot of engagement with the jurisdictions, a lot more education and training in an effort to try to do exactly what we're talking about here tonight. We've had some recent experimentation with cross-jurisdictional collaboration with the DNC. We did a lot of planning, multi-jurisdictional planning when the DNC was coming to town. So we did some learning around that, and ever since, and I think also our experience with the migrant emergency and our emergency operations there, a lot of cross-jurisdictional planning. And so we're excited about actually moving emergency management forward and re-engaging our partners. We've been doing a little bit of that, and Lee's been doing a fantastic job. So it's actually encouraging to hear you all actually take an interest in it. So we'll be happy to actually come back and report back because it's one of those things that just kind of flies under the radar. And it was kind of dormant a little bit, right after COVID hit, pre-COVID, some of those partnerships went away, and then COVID, everything was so centered on COVID. But emergency management covers all kinds of, it's all hazards, just like Director Ulster said, and some of the things that you guys have mentioned, that it's critically important for us to stay, educated, informed internally and also externally, and that we're coordinated across jurisdictional lines. So it's kind of super exciting that we can have an opportunity to come back and talk about all the work that you guys are doing on that.
I wonder how many residents realize that it comes through the health department. I mean, honestly, because I would think that it would be either police, fire, or just the village somehow just standing in. But it's important, so thank you.
Real quick on that, sir. You see it come through the health department. That's part of their certification, but we run unified command, and you've seen that through many of our larger events. So it, like Director also said, it depends on what the actual event is. With COVID, obviously the health department took the lead. Civil unrest that happened in the summer of the 20s, then the police department kind of took the lead there. But it's all under unified command, so we're all talking at all times and can leverage everyone's benefits and everyone's professional approach to the village. So, but it runs out of the health department as discussed, because that's part of a certified health department.
Very good, thank you.
All right, I sent you the IYS. Okay. Anything else? All right.
Good.
Thank you.
Our next presentation will be Development Service with Director Fuller. You have the walk-in presentation on your desk, the green copy. It's fresh off the press, so he has that information to present to you. So I'm going to turn it over to Director. Oh, I apologize. Hello. I have a copy.
Good evening, Craig Fahler, Development Services Director. I'm going to do this a little bit different than everybody else. There's going to be two of us doing a little presentation to you. We have our numbers expert, Nomi Diaz, our administrative officer, who's going to step you through a portion of this when we get to that point. But just to kind of overview our mission statement, we are here basically to enhance the quality of life for the Village of Oak Park by providing efficient and consistent and cost-effective and courteous and prompt customer service. Our department is basically more of a regulatory department. We're external-facing department, so we work with a lot of private property owners and issues. We work with partner agencies. Coordination. We also manage the public parking garage and the lots, and we have the parking enforcement. So we have a lot of employees who work with the public on a daily basis. Within our department, we're broken up into actually 5 divisions. One is the administration division. We have business services, parking and mobility, permits and development, and planning and urban design. So to talk a little bit about the priorities we have for administration, some of the main aspects of the administration division is direct access, direct activities of the 5 divisions that I mentioned. We manage private development projects from entitlement through construction. We have department liaisons to and provide support for multiple commissions, boards, and committees. With regards to the Business Services Division, some key features are one-stop shop, which is a centralized entry point for all businesses or new businesses within the community. This is something that we have created this year. They coordinate and manage multiple business grants and business licensing requirements. They also facilitate the business walkthrough assistance program for prospective businesses. With regards to the Planning and Urban Design Division, this includes zoning and historic preservation processes as well. They have initiatives with reviewing, right now they're reviewing the replacement of all the historic signs within the historic district because we have some that are just being faded and you can't really see. So we're trying to develop a program that will eventually replace some of those. They're also supporting the Missing Middle Housing Project within the zoning ordinance update and support for the Roosevelt Road Plan update. That is both of them which are currently underway. They also participate in the Cap the Ike Bridge Improvement Program with the Department of Public Works. With regards to the Permit and Development Division, they right now are working to update and improve the City View permitting program, trying to make it a little bit more user-friendly for the public. We're looking at the portal, changes to the portal, which will make easier access for the community as well as ensuring that we notify all the property owners who submit permits the status of their projects in a timely manner. They also have worked on updating the municipal building codes, which have come before you and you have adopted. We'll be looking at the 2024 code starting in January. And they are currently offering seminars for the contractors, architects, and homeowners, so they'll update them on what the 2024 plan codes will indicate. The Parking Mobility Services Division, they are working on upgrades to the Passport Park Oak Park application. They are working on improving the vehicle licensing enforcement process. They're looking at options for reducing parking permit fees for residents of these existing assistance programs. And they are looking at advancing the EV charging installation where possible with grant assistance. We have 2 parking lots being revitalized this year with grants. This is the current organizational chart, but I'm going to show you the proposed organizational chart. We have about 32 FTEs in the department currently, but we are looking at the removal of the assistant director position, which is in the large red box at the top of the screen. That position was basically divided up between the economic vitality group that was created and the administrative officer position, which is going to become the business services manager / administrative officer position. And you'll see that we have actually shifted that division from the kind of administrative officer quadrant into the new business services manager area, consistent with the other divisions in our department. It's really kind of renaming the area that was reclassified with the assistant development director and the administrative officer. And let's see, some of the other improvements we're looking at are with regards to partner agencies in the upper left corner. Right now we have responsibility for 3 partner agencies, 2 of which will be transferred to the Economic Vitality Group. We will retain the Oak Park Area Arts Council as the remaining partner agency. The 2 that are moving to the Economic Vitality Group are more related to their mission for the village. With regards to the boards and commissions, in the upper right-hand corner, we have several commissions and boards. The Community Design Commission, which is in red, has been eliminated and disbanded, and their duties have been spread out through other commissions. The Transportation Commission and the Liquor Control Review Board are supported by our staff. The other commissions are, we have staff liaisons that work with each of those commissions. The Business Assistance Council is listed there. We have modified that a bit where the Economic Vitality Office is going to be running that program, but we will still be involved in attending those meetings. A couple of things to point out is that under the Permit and Development Division, we do have a contractual agreement with a plan review and inspectional service firm that works with and at the village with doing inspections and plan reviews. And also this year, the Parking and Mobility Division took on the parking enforcement program from the police department that was had been traditionally there for many years. At this point, I'm going to have Nomi step in and kind of walk you through the numbers for our department.
Hello, good evening. So as Craig mentioned, the Administration Division oversees the work of the department, divisions administering just admin responsibilities, while also administrating the development activities of the village. So the Administrative Division budget specifically for fiscal year 2026 is proposed at $986,000. That's an 8.3% decrease compared to current fiscal year. Those changes are attributed to the proposed reclassification of the assistant director position that is classified there under regular salaries. That was a cost savings about $50,000 specifically to administration, but also a portion of that decrease is to the proposed reclassification of the two partner agencies going from Development Services to the Office of Economic Vitality. So you will see those budgets reflected in the village manager's budget. And line item that we included here as well that we felt was important to note is public art. So we had $50,000 budgeted for fiscal year 25, and that remained unspent. So we are proposing to carry forward those funds for next fiscal year. Those funds are developer contributions for public art. This money is being carried forward, again, because we did not spend it this current fiscal year. But we have began conversations with the Oak Park Area Arts Council about investing in public art in the community. Okay. Next, we have the Business Services Division. The Business Services Division serves as the point of entry for new businesses seeking to locate in Oak Park, commonly referred to as a one-stop shop, as Craig had mentioned. We manage all of business licensing, commercial code enforcement, business grant programs, and serving as a staff liaison to the business district associations in partnership with the Office of Economic Vitality. The proposed budget for 26 is about $807,000. Which is a 35.5% decrease compared to current fiscal year. The significant decrease is attributed to the chamber contract being reallocated to the Office of Economic Vitality, which a proposal would later come to the village board for fiscal year 26 funding. That was a one-time expense for this current fiscal year. Also, there are savings attributed to the assistant director position being removed from the department. Next, moving along to the Permits and Development Division. So responsible for issuing all permits for construction activities in the village. They're also responsible for the detailed plan review, contractor registration, and construction inspections. The proposed fiscal year 26 budget is slightly over $2 million. This is a 3.6% decrease over current fiscal year. And this decrease is attributed to just personnel costs and savings, again, associated with that former assistant director role. The Planning and Urban Design Division is responsible for all planning activities, including new developments and administrating existing village plans. This division also is showing a decrease in budget from current fiscal year to what we are proposing for 26 at 33.4%, with the 26 proposed budget at $674,000. The changes attributed to this cost savings is due to the one-time expenses in the current fiscal year, specifically the Roosevelt Road Plan and the zoning tax amendment. And last but certainly not least is our Parking and Mobility Services Division. So as Craig mentioned, this division is responsible for managing the village's public parking program, including parking enforcement. This division does operate out of the Parking Enterprise Fund, meaning that all parking revenues are sufficient to cover the parking expenses. So this $7.9 million budget that we are proposing for fiscal year 26 is strictly just the expenses that you see reflected here, which is a 15.6 decrease in compared to current fiscal year. The changes attributed to decrease in capital expenses due to the, we are working with Public Works to reassess the needs of the capital investments for parking infrastructure for future years. So that change was also presented when we presented our capital plan. And I will turn it back to Craig.
Thanks, Nomi. Just want to mention some of the goals that we are anticipating for next year to work on. If you remember, we talked to you about the stretch code, and we understand that there's going to be a 2025 stretch code coming out, which I believe is being worked on currently. So we're going to evaluate that to see how it works into the current code that we have presently. We're going to be updating the zoning ordinance with regards to building energy efficiencies and permeable materials. That was kind of a rollover from, or carryover from the current goals that you have. We'll roll those over into 26. We are still trying to partner with the City of Chicago on the North Avenue Streetscape project once we hear back from them to ensure that there's sufficient funding. Currently, we're evaluating the single-family zoning with regards to missing middle housing. We've begun that program with Opticos Design. And then we will evaluate the land use consistency as mentioned within the Economic Vitality Plan. Also, we're going to be looking at updating our Envision Oak Park Comprehensive Plan next year as well. So that was reflected in the budget. With that, if you have any questions, Nomi and I will be able to answer them. This is a kind of a budget at a glance based on what Nomi had provided to you. So I can leave that up if you'd like.
$50,000 for art that hasn't been used. Why do you think it's not being used?
North Avenue?
I think they're waiting for the right opportunity. It seems like they get sufficient funding to do their programs, but it is available for whenever we would want to use that. It's just kind of on reserve to.
No plans or anything. It's just staying. Yeah. It's there and available.
It's there and available. Yeah, it's
North Avenue?
You know, if the village ever wants to purchase a piece of art or do something with that, that's available.
My second question is parking. You mentioned this $7.9 million for parking expenses. What's the offsetting income? How much is that offsetting income?
So for 2026, we are projecting $8.8 million in revenue for parking.
So it doesn't cover, oh, okay, 8.7, okay.
8.8, so it covers our expenses of 7.9.
Plus a little- Does that, you're also doing the overnight enforcement of the parking on the streets?
Correct.
And is that a part of that number?
So the parking citation revenue, which is what I am understanding you're inquiring about, that revenue is currently in the general fund, and we are taking half of that revenue into the parking fund. So it's still supporting the general fund as well as operations in the parking fund.
What's that number, do you think?
It's $2 million for next year.
$2 a year? $1 million goes which way?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't know who's first. Jim, you may go.
No, has that always been the case? I'm just curious. Has it always been split like that, or is it, I don't know.
So because this year is the first time that parking enforcement is under development services, this fiscal year 2025 was the first year that we did that transfer, but historically, it has always been in the general fund.
And then, so no, I really, because of all these changes, it's impossible to tell, like, if it's up or down. Obviously, somewhere, looks like everything's down because it's being spread out, but I'm sure you had increases somewhere. I mean, everything went up. So, but it's, and again, no fault of your own. It's just, it's looking comparatively like a lot of people like to do, accountants. I mean, it's difficult to tell. But I just want to say that I do appreciate the investment in the garages, which is continuing. And of course, I'm sure they're doing well on the tickets and all that. And you know, enforcement's important. So thank you. And we'll look at this in more detail. Thank you.
Okay, Derek, and then Brian.
Thank you. First, easy one. I know this came as a printed version. Will we get a digital version as well on Legistar at some point or distributed?
A copy of it was supposed to be emailed right at 5 o'clock.
Oh, I'll check my email
Second
then.
thing
Okay.
is this copy was uploaded to Legistar at 5:02.
Okay, so it's already there. Great, excellent, thank you. Okay, a couple questions. I guess first one, just sort of piggybacking off of the public art question. I remember last finance committee, we heard from the Arts Council, and they seem to have a great plan for spending money on local art to local artists. So, I mean, if we're just sitting on it, we could maybe just talk to them. You mentioned there's a partnership, so I'm curious, is that a conversation that's continuing or starting?
Yes, they're aware of the funds, and we've talked about it off and on throughout the last year of what to do with it. But
Craig, can you just speak briefly about where the funds come from, how it's generated?
those funds were put in place with previous developments that occurred. So whenever we do a plan development, we have a public art requirement. So they can either put a piece of public art on site or put something on the building itself in the exterior, something that the public can see, or they can make a donation into the parking, or to the art fund.
Okay, and that's what.
That's where that's from.
Okay, so there's no restrictions on it. We can do whatever we want. We can spend it on art.
Yes.
Doesn't have to be in a
Yes.
particular location.
No, it could be anywhere throughout the village.
Okay, good to know. Okay, thank you. Okay, then going back to a couple other questions. Near the beginning of the presentation, you talked about there are more changes coming to the permit portal. I'm just curious, the City View system, I'm just curious. You know I have an interest in this system, so I'm just curious what that looks like.
NOMI is really kind of spearheading this effort with CityView, and actually CityView, the organization will be on site next week and the week after to walk us through all the new changes that they're proposing. We've been working with them over the years to try to get changes done. They are now at the point where they're going to make some, what we consider significant changes that are for the better, and maybe Naomi can give you a couple of specifics. Okay?
Happy to. So one of the most significant changes that will be most notable will be updates to our actual portal when residents or customers are applying contractors for a permit. It'll be a lot more user-friendly. We're incorporating a CityView assistant. So essentially, it's AI. You can ask a question about what's the status of my permit, and it allows to tell you what the status of your permit is, if it's still pending review, if it was returned for corrections, or if you're ready to schedule next final inspections. So with doing that, that also is improvements for, like I said, the customer-facing aspect of it. We are also doing changes on the easy permits, so we're exploring as to identifying certain permits that don't have to go through the long and lengthy permit process, and instead you can just be generated a permit within 24 hours. So those are two of the most significant changes, while also making improvements to the internal use. So we are meeting, like Craig mentioned, starting Monday with the entire village staff. So all the departments will have approximately 8 hours dedicated to them over the span of the next 2 weeks to meet with the CityView analyst teams to make improvements to their internal workflows, letterheads, review process, notifications, mobile inspections, so that way it's much more user-friendly for staff as well to ultimately give the best customer service experience.
Okay, that's helpful to hear. It sounds like it's an upgrade, like they're coming in with like, here's the latest version of our software, get you guys up to date on the latest. Is that kind of what this is?
Yes, while also just making improvements to a lot of bugs that have been identified historically by staff and by users.
Okay, great. I'm always going to be skeptical of like AI, chatbot kind of technology. It's sort of used as like a cure-all. And if you have faulty underlying data and systems, that putting a chatbot on top does not make it better. It makes it worse. So
We'll have a discussion.
I want to see proof that it works before saying yes to that. But yes to all the other stuff. I know that's something in the Building Codes Commission that's come up often. And I think you were there, Craig, at some of those meetings where some of those issues with contractors was raised. So hopefully those things are being addressed first, because I think there are, a few grievances there. So, okay, excellent. Okay. Also related to building codes, I'm just curious. I know it wasn't in this presentation, but can you say more about, share a little bit more about the way we staff the permitting, like people? I know we outsource most of that or some of that. I've always been a little bit vague about how that actually is done, because I have heard also in those meetings that there's sometimes inconsistency in how different projects are being reviewed, depending on who you get. I don't love hearing inconsistent experiences like that.
Yeah, so we have, if you look at the chart before you, we have a manager, chief building official, who is hired. We have the permit development supervisor who is on staff, and we have 3 customer service reps who work with and talk with the public, and then we have 1 building inspector that we hire. The rest is contracted out. There's 5 contractors that come in. We have a plan reviewer on site. We have a plan reviewer off-site. And then we have plumbing inspector, electrical inspector, and a building inspector. And those 3 inspectors sometimes can change depending on whether someone needs a day off or they leave and someone comes. So the inconsistency kind of comes from that aspect. But everyone else is pretty much the same person. We're right now in the middle of negotiating a contract with, we're looking at 2 different entities, trying to figure out what the best solution is for the village, if we want to go with one or the other or a combination of the 2. So we're looking at trying to create a cost savings for the village with that as well, but we want to make sure that we have the best fit for the community going forward.
Yeah, I think I could see potentially if you go with 2, that could make it worse with the inconsistency, especially if you have multiple parties potentially, or is there?
It depends. So one entity would be doing the inspections, one would be doing the plan reviews. I mean, they would still have to work cohesively the same as they do now. It's not like one firm is going to do their thing and the other firm is going to do their thing. It has to work together.
Yeah.
So if that is the case, then we're going to give it a trial run for 6 months to see how it works and then we'll reevaluate.
Okay, yeah. As that unfolds, I just love to make sure that that's a priority, is the consistency of the
Yes.
experience, because,
Totally agree.
again, I think it just seems like unfair, it's like roll the dice, who you gonna get? And they said no when the other person said yes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that just seems like not an outcome that's great for anybody.
Yeah, and we have a new manager in that position who I think has a very good handle on, because he worked with one of the contract firms, so he has a good handle on how they function. So I think he's going to be a good oversight. You've met him before, but
Sean,
yeah, Sean. So
Great, okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Brian.
So, what is our current spend on that, plan review inspector, external support contract?
1.2. Yeah, 1.2 million right now.
Okay, 1.2 million for the 5.
Yes. The advantage of that, though, is that if we need other contractor or other inspectors or other reviewers, like a structural engineer, that's at no extra cost. So they have a little bit of flexibility in that respect to add additional team members to the group if we need it. But generally 5, yes.
Okay, because I do know, like, when we're looking at sort of the longer history of the village, this was one of the places, I think, back in the financial recession, was when internal inspection and plan review services, those positions were cut and we outsourced.
Yes.
So, and I know that was for the purpose of cost savings. I hear you on it provides more flexibility. 1.2 million for what we're showing as roughly, 2.5 FTEs on the org chart. I know five people, but that's how, I'm trying to make those numbers work in my head, because I've heard a lot of reports of inconsistency, and not just inconsistency like, well, one between different projects where, like, one inspector said it was fine on one project, a different inspector said it was fine on a different project. I've, in the very recent past, heard something that was approved on plan review. It was constructed as it had been approved on plan review, and the inspector rejected it, but the village okayed it on plan review. Didn't end up being an acceptable answer, and so they had to take something out and redo it. And so we've got a struggle right now where we're seeing inconsistency that seems like it would be born out of this. They're not people who are employees here working together every day, but rather, like,
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but, even if you have employees here, sometimes they make a mistake and they have to go back and make changes. I don't know what the situation was, but, we have reevaluated the current model. And so we went out for RFP and we're looking at two different firms. So we want to make sure that we have a better cohesive team to work together, and hopefully maybe we'll try out a new process with them. So, and I think doing the upgrades to CityView is probably going to help as well. But I understand what you're saying.
I just say, sometimes those things are best emailed. If you've got some information about cases that can help.
Yeah, no, it's not necessarily about that, like, let's go address this one case, but I think it is something that that's one example, but it's something that I hear as a regular sort of issue that residents have as they're working through these processes. And so I think it sounds like there would be some interest in, as we are looking at what the new process would be, what the new contract would be, maybe hearing about that sort of at the board table, because I think, I heard Jim and nodding.
It's true.
And so I think it's a
I
a
think
shared interest.
I think I'm reflecting on the training that we all received when we, about board relations and staff relations. I think you were absent. Why not, if we can, it just, making it awkward.
So,
So
what are you, trustee Stra, I mean, are you asking for information on a new, like a internal staffing, an insourcing model?
No, I think, I was just saying, like, we're going through an RFP process, and I think it sounds like there would be some interest as we're selecting our new structure and contract. It sounds like there would be some interest in hearing what that would look like, and how that might improve the service and the customer experience, because it sounds like that's part of the goal of those changes.
Yeah, I think so. There are three things happening. They're looking at, through the RFP process, looking at the contract differently. You have the City View upgrades, and then you also have the business concierge with the one-stop shop design. So you got some people-oriented things happening there. The contract, looking at the contract, and also some technology things, and it's all driven towards trying to create a better customer experience. Yes, we're going to be talking more about that, and obviously we'll be talking about the contract in the near future too.
All right, thank you. I do think sometimes staff over contracts and that can be better customer service, and if that is at all what we're talking about, then. But thank you. Do any other questions for our Development Customer Services Department?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our last presentation will be of Public Works for this evening, last presentation for this evening. And we have Director Sperling here.
Thank you.
Save the best for last, right? All right, good evening, everyone. Rob Sproul, Public Works Director. I know we've already seen quite a bit of each other through the Finance Committee budget process. Tonight, here to talk about our operating budget. But we'll start, similar to everybody else, with a mission statement for the department, and that's to deliver essential services that keep our community safe, clean, connected, with a commitment to excellence, high-quality customer service. The department maintains infrastructure, facilities, municipal assets, ensuring that Oak Park thrives today and into the future. And we do that by doing a lot of different tasks associated with village infrastructure. A lot of the things you're probably familiar with like street maintenance, delivering safe water across the community, sewer collection, capital improvement projects that we've talked about quite a bit already. But in addition to that, the department's also tasked with maintaining the village's extensive urban forest, managing our refuse and recycling collection program, maintaining traffic signals, street lights, all of our facilities and equipment. And this includes vehicles for police, fire, park district, township, as well as our own public works vehicles. So, department's resourced through a number of different funds. Tonight we'll be talking primarily about the general fund, but there's also the water and sewer fund, the capital fund, motor fuel tax fund, and then also the environmental services fund. As we kind of go through our discussion as it relates to operating expenses, because we draw from a lot of different funds for different positions, we don't really try to focus too much on the salaries because they're really mixed across a lot of different funds. We take advantage of the opportunities where we can to reallocate salaries to alternative funds rather than pulling them out of the general fund. So a lot of even the general fund's staff, if there are opportunities to pay for them out of different resources, we do that. For example, just before we get too far in, like streets division staff, for example, get paid out of the general fund, they get paid out of the motor fuel tax fund, they get paid out of the environmental services fund, and then they actually get paid out of the parking fund as well, because they provide services across all of those different types of activities. So rather than burdening the general fund with all of the costs for those positions, we spread them out. Even staff like our forestry staff and our fleet staff have a portion of their salaries paid out of the motor fuel tax fund because they contribute labor hours to qualifying activities, primarily related to snow mitigation. And so we can offset some of those costs across these different types of enterprise funds and other funding resources. When we look at the org chart, we've got 8 different divisions, and it's a pretty wide chart, so it gets pretty small there. But you know, we host engineering, which you've met Bill McKenna, the village engineer, environmental services, our administration division, forestry, fleet services, water and sewer, building maintenance, and then our streets and street lighting. No significant changes proposed for this year except the reallocation of 1 FTE from our administration division over to our forestry division. It's a large division, and within the budget book, you'll see a large number of key initiatives, projects spanning all those different divisions. We tried to highlight some of the larger ones. A number of these are projects that we've already discussed because they're tied to capital improvement projects. So I don't want to spend too much time going through all of these individual priorities, but we do hit on a number of key board goals and priorities, as well as just typical base core service responsibilities that are across all the divisions. Some of the bigger projects that we've already kind of talked about historically is our Oak Park Municipal Campus project, neighborhood greenways and bike boulevard system, bike improvements, Vision Zero improvements. In our baseline programs, we see a lot of things related to some things we've already talked about. We've stood up our customer service request management program that's integrated in with the website, and we've been working with other departments to integrate that across multiple departments. We've also been working with our new building maintenance contractor to stand up a new Angus is the brand name, but asset management program that'll help improve our preventative maintenance programs across all of our facilities. A number of CIP projects, like I've mentioned, and then improving our one of our other large projects that we're proposing over the next couple of years is improving our commercial high-level roadway lighting to new LED dark sky compliant fixtures. And like I said, a number of different divisions, so we've got a lot of different activities. But some of the other things that we'll talk about, or you'll see come up in terms of some of the cost differentials potentially, are we are going back out to bid this fall for all of our primary tree maintenance contract services, as well as our consulting services. Yeah, that's the big one there. We'll be adding another emergency vehicle technician within our fleet division. What we've already talked about there with our street lighting. We're also continuing to promote our composting program and hope to reach 34% participation by the end of next year. We're right around 30% at this point. We'll be looking to partner, I believe, with the Park District to identify 2 more composting locations for public drop-off. We'll be meeting with the Finance Committee and the board probably starting in Q1 regarding a 5-year rate study for water and sewer rates. And then also something we've talked about and we are in the process of, we're hoping to stand up and actually publish our customer-facing portal for water service customers in order to allow them to track their usage on a regular basis and receive notifications for unusual water usage. This is kind of our fiscal year at a glance. Again, we're focusing primarily here on operating expenses because those those fringe costs and personnel costs are kind of spread across a lot of different programs. Nothing too significant in terms of overall variation between the divisions. I think looking at the number overall, we're somewhere less than, we're right around 2% for our total general fund expenditure, less than 1% in our environmental services fund, and 5.5% in our water and sewer fund. That does include the capital expenses associated with the water and sewer fund. And then as kind of the last slide, we do have, we went through the individual funds and tried to identify some of the places where you may see adjustments, both positively and negatively, greater than $5,000. I can go through all of these if you'd like. I know it's getting a little bit late, but some of the main places we're seeing some of that, you see a pretty significant downward trend in the water and sewer fund. We're going to be rolling off some consulting services that we've historically had in that department that are showing some significant savings. Operational expenses in streets and street lighting continue to kind of creep up. Street lighting more significantly this year, primarily because of the number of Vision Zero and primarily Vision Zero improvements that are happening in the right-of-way. As we continue to increase the number of, flashing signs, radar signs, push buttons, they seem to be more and more attractive to vehicular strikes. And so we are spending quite a bit of money replacing those. And while there are opportunities and we do pursue claims whenever possible, we aren't always able to realize that savings. But so some of that operational expense cost is offset with revenue, but we don't necessarily know what that's going to be in any one year. So we have to plan for the budgetary expenditure, and then we work with the law department to get as many of those claims back as we can. They've actually been pretty successful over the last year, right, Tony? I mean, we've gotten some good returns, but
where we can,
Yeah.
The folks most likely to hit a street sign are likely to be under or uninsured. So it's been a challenge on collection.
So, just something to keep in mind. Yeah, I mean, streets and our streets lighting costs with that maintenance will probably continue to go up as we continue to advance Vision Zero priorities as well as bike improvements. Where else do we see one? In environmental services, it's primarily tied to the increases associated with CPI. That's where we see a lot of our cost increases. We try to offset them where we can, but this year, I mean, we haven't gotten, per our contracts, the contractors are entitled to a CPI increase less than 5%. That's a September to October annual price, so that then there's an opportunity to institute those contracts before the end of the year. The September numbers haven't come out yet. I know they're supposed to be sending back staff at the federal government to come up with those numbers, but we're trending right around 3%, I think is where things are for the CPI for the last 12 months. So that's what we've been budgeting for, and that's where most of those smaller increases we're seeing. So happy to answer any questions.
Brian?
I know that a fair bit of the work you guys do is grant funded and is funded by federal grants. Is that both on the CIP side and the sort of operational budget side, or is that mostly just on the CIP?
Yeah, it's mostly on the CIP side. I'm not sure that we actually have any general fund grant expenditures. The first thing that's going to jump to mind is the fleet purchase that we're doing with the semi, but that's still in the capital fund. It's just in the fleet fund, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, most of the time we're able to realize those things. They're on the capital project side.
Okay, so if federal grant funding is challenged, that's not going to necessarily impact the operational budget, other than as we consider shifting things around.
Yes, yeah. And in terms of even the capital expenditures, I think we've provided some resources to finance and law in the past in regards to where we thought we might be impacted. And most of the larger, even on the capital side, are federal earmarks that haven't necessarily been impacted directly by kind of some of the changes around grant requirements yet. But yeah, it makes some of the grant terms are make it more challenging for us to apply for grants.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just a question, so and I'm not sure I have a question here, I want to make sure. But the water and sewer expenditure is increasing by $1.3 million, but you're also receiving a reduction of external support in paying for external contracts.
Yeah.
So it's
capital.
It's capital.
Yeah.
So that's capital in the increase. So you're
Yeah,
spending more.
yes, you're right. So like I said,
Projects.
the water and sewer fund is shown, the capital, the CIP projects associated with water and sewer are paid for out of the water and sewer fund.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that cost is shown here in this fund. Whereas it's not shown for it's not, the CIP projects associated with engineering aren't in the engineering fund. So, yeah, what you're seeing there in terms of cost increase is offset by that $450,000, but it's primarily capital project increases. We are seeing, we are planning for a 3% increase in terms of costs associated with the purchase of water as well.
Right.
So that's in there as well, but it's primarily capital projects that drive the larger numbers in the water and sewer fund.
Very good. Thank you.
John?
You would have to have a summary sheet that shows all your sources of revenue and then your expenses by personnel and expenses and so forth. So we can kind of look at it to see where things might be changing.
So the way that the budget is typically presented is by fund, right? So
I understand that.
yeah, so we could prepare something like that, but yeah, we would have to, it'd take a minute to run that report where we can consolidate the funds associated with public works within a single document. Yeah.
That would be helpful to me.
Sure. Yeah, well, it won't necessarily, though, when you look at things like personnel and fringe costs, tell you how those positions, though, are necessarily broken up, right? So that's where it just gets kind of confusing, but yeah.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for this. Can you share a little bit more about there are a couple items on here on like the LED light rollout. There's the bird safe ones, but then there's another item about just more lights. Can you just talk about what that broadly looks like, what the rollout plan looks like?
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, and we talked about this during the capital project process a little bit. The village is responsible for, I think it's in excess of 6,000 street lights. All of the low-level pedestrian lights along the residential corridors have already been upgraded to LED. The one big piece that's still out there are, you could say maybe two if you look at parking as a separate item, but the parking lots, I should say, and then all of the higher level commercial corridor or arterial lights have, they're in places they've been upgraded, but we're really looking to do a comprehensive upgrade of all of those higher level arterial street lights. What we presented, I think, in the Capitol is a multi-year plan over the next 2 or 3 years, I think, to replace all of those lights. We're in the process right now of working with a consultant to identify what light we want to move forward with. We might do a couple test installations probably next year as well to just kind of make sure that we're happy with what we're seeing, and then we would start to phase in those lights over time and have a hire a contractor to just do that purchase and installation.
Okay. And I imagine the LEDs generally last longer than the incandescent.
Oh, yeah.
What's the lifespan difference? Do you have a
Well, we have a number of different types of lights out there right now. So there's like induction lights, there's sodium lights, and so they all have different life cycles. But yeah, I mean, it's usually like a 5 to 10 times improvement.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, excellent. You noted there's a goal of growing the composting participation. I'm curious how you came up with that goal of 34% and sort of what's the strategy for growing it? How are you sort of plan to achieve that?
Yeah, so we do a lot of active communication and engagement around the composting program, but really what we're looking at in terms of trying to continue to grow the participation rate is to get to a point where we think the community would be in a place where it could maybe transition to a universal program. We've over the course of this year, we've been doing our waste characterization study where we've been utilizing a consultant and in-house staff to characterize our waste stream. So we've been getting a lot of good data. We actually just met with the EEC this last month to kind of share some of the initial findings there. And the next step with that process is public engagement. We just posted a survey actually that we're encouraging people to take to try to learn a little bit about how they utilize the waste stream. And actually, I'd encourage everybody to take the survey. If you take the survey, you get a $10 rebate on your refuse bill. So definitely encourage you to take it. We want to hear all perspectives because that's really important. But one of the ways that we're hoping to try to continue to grow the participation rate is to utilize the information that we get through the waste characterization study to develop waste rates that might more incentivize people to transition to composting. Probably the biggest hurdle is the cost. You know, if you want to participate in the program, it's an opt-in and you're paying additional fees to participate. So if there are ways that we can change our rate structure to incentivize people to move in that direction, whether it's punitive or whether it's not, like if it's supportive of trying to reduce the cost for composting, that's what we're really looking at. Because I think at a minimum, we think probably, you know, anecdotally, the community probably needs to get to at least 50% participation before we really think that transitioning to a universal might be successful. But obviously that's, you know, so that's just where we're aiming right now. But there'll be opportunities both with that information coming out over the next year and the opportunities with either a renewal for LRS or a transition there in the next couple of years to kind of further evaluate those options.
I wrote down, what was it, 2027? That's when the May 2027 is when the
March, April
comes up.
Is when the LRS comes up?
Yeah.
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 I don't like them. I think they do a poor
save
job.
it for 2027, Jim.
No disrespect.
Yes, sir. We are. We're in conversations with LRS, and we are hoping to have some conversations in the near future with the board in regards to next steps as it relates to the waste contract.
Yeah.
And discussing all the different options.
Thank you.
I'm very curious to hear, you know, to have that conversation about what those, you know, carrots or sticks or combination of both for the refuse collection to incentivize the behavior we want to see. I know we're also revisiting the water bills as well and that rate structure. Does it make sense to think about those together, or is that biting off too much of a change all at once?
They're two. We'll always be talking about both of them, but they're kind of two independent processes. Yeah, because okay. I mean, we revisit those rates every year. The hope with the 5-year plan for water rates is to really kind of look strategically at some of the required infrastructure improvements that may be needed over the next few years or 20 years with lead lines. So I think we'll be having both of those conversations, but they'll probably be in parallel lanes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great. And then I noticed, the $50K in fuel savings, I assume that's due to fleet electrification, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's probably actually more potential realized savings that we'll see there, but our fleet superintendent is always very conservative about reducing his fuel budget because pricing is just so uncertain.
Sure.
But we have been trending lower than what we've been budgeting. And so I kind of really pushed him to at least make some token acknowledgement that, yes, we are realizing savings with our transition over to the EV fleet.
Do you think that trend will continue? I mean, eventually you electrify all of them. And as I understand, we're getting pretty close, pretty far down that line. Obviously, the biggest stuff has not been done yet. But
yeah,
should we expect to see that like in next year as well?
Yeah, I think so. Barring the uncertainty with the cost of fuel, what we could probably start doing at least is starting to present as part of this process every year with the board, the consumption usage rather than just looking at it as a number, so that you guys can have a better understanding of how that's trending in terms of actual gallons, right? Because that's what it's really about. And so, yeah, I think we'll continue to realize that savings, and as we kind of move through multiple years of potential savings, we'll be more comfortable adjusting that budget number further south. Yeah, until we can really start to evaluate, or until better options come on the market for some of our heavier duty trucks, we are reaching kind of a satiation point with how many of the vehicles we can transition.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. And then my last question is this. So you mentioned the CPI. You're anticipating 3%. Is there any concern about I mean, we're in this weird world where the tariffs are here, but we haven't really, like, it's starting to creep up as, like, you know, as all the additional bulk buying that all these companies are doing is probably getting exhausted. Do we have any sense about if that's going to start to affect us this coming year?
Yeah, I mean, we have started to get some. So typically our 3% CPI contracts are more related to service contracts. So that those contracts look back historically over the past year to identify what the increase was over time. And then the contractor is allowed by contract to ask for that percent increase as part of their renewal. Most of our parts contracts and material services, we go out to bid annually. And yeah, we have started to get some notification from contractors to expect, or vendors is probably a better word for them, that there may be significant increases next year. That was one of the reasons also, I think, that street lighting in particular raised some of their, wanted to be more conservative and provide a little bit more funding for budget. Those items are becoming more scarce. Timelines are longer, and they're able to demand a little bit higher of a premium for those costs as well. So we haven't seen it yet, because we don't typically start to bid out those contracts until the budget process kind of settles down. Then staff has time in December to start putting all those purchase price requests out. But I wouldn't be surprised to see some cost increases there. But we will get. I mean, we've got Oak Park Avenue streetscape projects currently out to bid. That's coming back at the end of the month. We'll be talking about that next month. That, along with a couple of other ones that we have out, we'll start to probably get a real good, once we start to see kind of what those numbers come in at and what material costs look like compared to last year, when that project went out to bid, we might start to be able to bear out some of that and get some ideas.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
I just have a comment, not about Public Works, but, so, yeah. I won't make any more comments. But just curious, the village as a whole buys a lot of goods. We've talked about this previously. Is there been any thought to having a dedicated procurement individual that handles a lot of these cross-department purchases, many of which would be similar, and I'm not just talking about office supplies, but generally, I mean, we buy a lot of things, right? Things, as opposed to services. Has that ever been a consideration?
Yes, there has been a consideration. We've been talking about that recently with, as we've been kind of strengthening our finance department. One consideration is to centralize purchasing, so that we can be more proactive and coordinated in that regard, as you're describing. And so that is something that we're going to take up next fiscal year to see, to look at ways that we might be able to operationalize that.
I think there you might find there's cost savings there that would be worthy of pursuing, perhaps. I don't know what you have to look at it, but I mean, it's a big business you run. It's a big business, and most places have some sort of function like that. So thank you.
That's correct.
All good?
All good.
All right, Mary?
That concludes tonight's presentations. For our next ones are scheduled for November 6th. We are currently in the process of reviewing those presentations. We'll be getting those out to you shortly. They will be coming to you electronically, and they'll also be loaded up in a Legistar, or Granicus, excuse me. Thank you.
Fantastic. Any questions of staff?
question. I think it might be for Village Manager Jackson. I just want to follow up on the library bridge loan. I know I sent an email about this. Is this something we can't talk about right now? Okay, all right.
Well,
Sorry.
yeah, it'll be on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, yeah, and I do apologize for being short, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Since I was with the start. But the pressure was from all the departments.
From the Board of Commissioners of Oklahoma Sunday, I am a recent appointment to the state Illinois Law Enforcement Training Standards Board.
It's interesting because
I didn't respond to your last text. I didn't see it until later.